Hi, this is Namrisa Lee. You're listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow. I'm Albie, and as with me always, except for next week, is Hayden.
Coming to you live from Sector 7G.
And we have our special guest panelist tonight, and that is Chris Baldwin. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Great. We're so happy to have you. And
we tried to get Christopher D. Philippus, but Albie ordered you off Wish. So
I know, right? That's great.
We have a great show tonight. We have 3 interviews. We have an interview with the guy who played Eugene, and that is Joe Dinicol. We also have an interview with Silas Howard, who is the director of Salvation or Bust. And to finish it all off, we have an interview with Mike Wade, who played Moe Murphy, the janitor in this episode, Leap.Die.Repeat. But first, let's go to Chris. We're happy to have you, Chris. I saw some of your videos about Quantum Leap, and I think I first saw you when you did a video on the reaction to the trailer for the first episode of the new series. So that was cool. So
right, I'm usually right behind you guys, you know.
So how did you first find Quantum Leap, and what's your how did your Quantum Leap fandom start?
It started back in the day because everybody knew Scott Bakula then, because Scott Bakula was doing shows after shows and movies after movies, and basically my mom that had involvement with Universal Studios introduced me to Quantum Leap, and so it just took off, and I loved the show, and I always used to prank call Universal Studios, actually asking to talk to Dr. Sam Beckett.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay, Chris, what do you think of the new version of Quantum Leap this season so far?
I love it. I love it. I love it to the fact that they're doing new things, different things within Leaps than the original. They're going bigger, better, new elements, new effects, new plots, new twists, and it's great. I really love it. I mean, they're topping what they did back in the original, and they're doing a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I'm loving the new show. Okay, Chris, what are your first impressions of Leap, Die, Repeat?
Kind of reminds you of Groundhog's Day in a way with Bill Murray.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
I just watched that.
Just like,
I just watched that.
Right, and I've seen it, and you know, I've met Bill Murray, and I was just like, besides Ghostbusters, you know, Groundhog's Day.
And by the way, I was just going to say, by the way, if Albie sees his shadow, we're going to have 6 weeks of fans trying to argue about whether or not Ben is immortal. Just letting everyone know.
Yeah, is he? I don't know.
No. Oh, come on, Albie, you should have watched the episode more than that. How many more people do I have to explain this to? If you watch the episode, you will have heard that it's because of the nuclear reactor. Or nuclear reactor, as Homer would say. It's because of the nuclear reactor that this time loop went into effect. And it's actually kind of funny because I had a feeling the nuclear reactor would have had something to do with what was going to go on in the episode. I don't know if you remember back to the Leap Back and how Sam was explaining how he and Al were able to Simo leap. And he said the only way there'd be enough power to cause that kind of disruption would be either to be struck by lightning or to be at ground zero during an explosion. So I actually thought what might happen is they might get caught in the explosion, but it might cause a Simo leap between Ben and Addison. Oh. It would have been interesting if Addison ended up having to be the leaper for either a short or an extended period of time, especially because she was supposed to be the Leaper originally, but also because, as we're kind of getting hints of from Janice and from the whole situation, something's going to go wrong involving Addison, and it's possible that she can't be trusted just like the rest of the project. So it would have been kind of cool to see Ben back at the project trying to stop these cataclysmic events that he originally leapt to try and prevent in the first place. So yeah, I was kind of hoping we might see something like that, actually see Ben back at the project and, get some answers and see him and Janice, trying to overcome what is going to happen with the project itself. And so it's a shame it didn't go that way. But what I did like was the fact that I think I could have written this episode. It's exactly the sort of thing that I had been hoping to see from Quantum Leap for a long, long time. We've seen similar, like in the Halloween episode that shan't be named, where it was kind of up for debate until we got the response from the writer as to whether or not the leap actually reset or whether it was a dream originally. But we do know that leaps can be reset, and it is really cool seeing the same thing happen from different perspectives. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode a lot. So yeah, what were your thoughts, Albie, when you were watching it?
I really enjoyed this episode. I love time loops. I love Groundhog Day, the movie, and so it turns out this episode wasn't a time loop. He just leaped into each individual person in the elevator, but it definitely presented itself as a time loop episode. And they took it as time loops until Ziggy figured out that he only had one shot in each body. Yeah. So, and it was cool that they were, I think it was on the third leap or so. Was it when he was in Woolsey where they were, before they found out that it was finite, that they were, Ben was getting blasé about it. And he was, just sitting there waiting for the explosion to happen again, which kind of reminded me, if you saw the Stargate SG-1 episode where they were stuck in a time loop, and but it was an infinite time loop for I don't know how many years. It's been a while since I saw it, but that they were just doing things like towards the end of the movie Groundhog Day, where nothing mattered, so you just tried everything, jumping off a building, different things. But then I liked that they waited to say that the leaps were finite until later on in the episode to add more jeopardy towards the end of the episode, without it being the life or death jeopardy the whole episode. So it was able to give it a different dimension throughout.
Yeah. So how did you feel when Ben died the first time?
I was just going to ask that.
My God. Here's what happened. So we got the screener, and it was in the afternoon, and I was working. I work at home, but I was working. I had work to do before the end of the day, and Serenity was in her homeschool classes online. So I was like, the screener's up, but we still have stuff to do. So I knew it'd be about 3 hours before we could watch it. So once she was done with school and I was done with work, we just put it on the TV just to check it out real quick before we were going to go have dinner. And we watch Jeopardy every night and see how many questions we can answer between the two of us. We have little counter clickers, and she's great at that. But so we just put it on to check the quality and see what it's going to be like, and watch a teaser maybe. And this teaser's 10 minutes, 15. I don't even know. It's the longest leap in the episode. And yeah, careful with that pen. And so we just put it on to check the quality, and we're standing there watching it before we go do everything we're about to do before we watch the episode. And I'm just standing there, and Ben dies, and we know it's a time loop episode from the preview, but Caitlin's performance when Addison thinks Ben died for real, and that's the end, and this is over, and she lost her soulmate, the person she loves the most in this world, and that just pain and that scream she let out and the collapse, and how Ian held her, I started to cry. And this is 4 minutes into the episode? How does a TV show 4 minutes in get me to cry already? Great job by the writers, great job by the directors, great job, especially by Caitlin. She did great in the whole episode, but that part, and after me and Rennie are just standing in front of the TV, gonna do other stuff before we really watch the episode, we looked at each other and we said, we just got to watch it now. So we put everything else aside, and we just sat down and watched the episode. And it was just an amazing episode. I really got to say, every episode is getting to be my new favorite. And of course, I love time travel because I love things like Quantum Leap. I love time loop episodes. So this was perfect, a time loop episode in Quantum Leap. It was just really good. And Robert Picardo's in it. What do you guys think of Robert Picardo being in it? That was a cool get.
Which one is he?
He played Woolsey. He's the EMH, the doctor from Voyager. Hayden's not a Trekkie. He's the one person I know that's not a Trekkie. He's holding out, but he's only
the
got
one
so much room in his brain.
Leapt into first?
Second. First he leaped into the general. Second, was it second or third? He leaped into Woolsey.
No, he was the like the dorky scientist second.
Okay, Eugene.
Then the reporter.
Eugene second. Okay.
Yeah, then there was the female reporter.
Yeah, Mallory.
And then there was
Moe Murphy, the janitor.
Picard. And the
Robert Picardo.
Last,
yeah. Well, I think it's you. I think you don't watch Star Trek because you watch some of those sports like the cricket ball and stuff. So you don't have room in your brain for the Star Trek.
The only thing more boring than cricket is people talking about cricket. Okay.
Well, he was good in Pinocchio. That's all I know.
Okay. Yeah,
All
everyone
right,
did a great job in this episode. No weak links that I could tell. The only thing that I might have changed. Okay, have you noticed that in most of the episodes they haven't put the episode title or the date up on the screen like they did in the original series?
Yeah,
right.
Now,
that's something
I think
missed.
that might be. Well, I think that might be deliberate because since we get the screeners a little bit in advance, we know what the titles are a little bit in advance. When we see Leap.Die.Repeat, it kind of spoils the fact that it's going to have to be some sort of a time loop. So even though I was quite shocked to see Ben die, I thought, no, can't be permanent because of the episode title. I'd be interested to see what others who didn't know the episode title in advance and didn't know what was going to happen in advance would have thought. So maybe Chris, you might be able to shed some light there.
I think that they use that as part of Addison's job for her to come out and be like, "This is where you're at. This is the time. This is what's happening." Even though Al did it in the original, right? Well, Addison has figured a way to just start communicating with Ben a lot more, like, you're here to do such and such and such, I got this information from Ziggy. I mean, I like it. I do. I mean, we could have the name of the episode or the time, but I feel like Addison is doing her part to come out and be like, Ben, this is where you're at. This is what's happening. Ziggy doesn't have any data yet, and we're working on that, and stuff.
So did you know the episode title before you watched it the first time?
No.
No. So you didn't know what was coming?
No. And that's a shocking thing about it, about Quantum Leap, is you don't know what's to be expected. Like, something big is going to happen in the episode, but you just don't know what big is going to happen. And say, like, when Ben makes other leaps, I think that going back to where in the original we knew when Sam left home, I think the producers and the directors are saving that for a special surprise. That's what I'm picking up. Because that's going to be a big leap. It really is.
So without knowing in advance that there was going to be a time loop, seeing Ben die, how did you think they were going to get out of it?
I had to think it was a dream, or kind of like Sam woke up at the end and was just like, okay.
There goes another marriage.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I can always get married.
Actually, Albie, that'd be a good place to put the explosion.
Right. Sorry.
It's okay.
But I kind of figured that it was, something was going to happen. You just knew either Sam was either in a dream or maybe they're going to show something new. Like they should show an element where Ben leaps, right? And like where he goes to, and like, does he go to a dream state or does he do something while he's sleeping? Because if you go back and watch your first episode of this Quantum Leap, they talk about how long it takes to get one point to another. So where does Ben go during those leaps? That's just me, and everybody else. I know on Twitter I know on social media, that's a lot of their biggest question. Where does Ben go during those leaps?
My headcanon is that he actually does other leaps that the project is not privy to. And so that might fill up the rest of his time, if that makes sense. And also he's leaping around in time, so he also could go from one leap right to the next leap. And then we're just seeing it from our perspective in 2023, along with headquarters. And it takes them a while to figure out where he is and catch up to him. And then they start their time with the start of his leap, kind of, if that makes sense. I don't know. Chris, are you
I don't
aware...
know if I agree with that because we...
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if I agree
Howard,
with that.
What do you think? Yeah.
It's Hayden, by the way.
No, sorry.
It's all right, Alcatraz. Anyway, I thought... I don't really agree with that idea that you said, though, because we're actually seeing what's going on at the project in real time. And it seems like as soon as Ben leaps, there's not really all that much time in between and when he actually lands. So I don't think that there could really be other leaps going on, especially because, as I think it was Ian said, it seems like all of Ben's leaps have been pre-programmed. So, they can't actually access it because of the they can't actually access it because of all the encryptions and everything. But since everything seems to be pre-programmed, that would suggest that I think that it's just Ben taking far less time to get between leaps than Sam did. It might actually be because everything is targeted. Remember in the original series, I think Sam said at one point that his first leap was aimless. They were just hoping that he'd actually leap. But I think they found over time that when there were like specific goals for the initial leap, like Sam trying to leap into Al to stop him from being killed, like Bingo being leapt back to stop I've forgotten what the woman's name was. Marcy, wasn't it? Marcy from being killed by Chip. Like Zoe leaping to try and kill Aaliyah and Sam. When they've got a leap in mind, it seems like they have far more accuracy and can do things quicker than one that's aimless like Sam's original leap. So maybe that's what is coming into play as well. Maybe that's why it seems like as soon as Ben leaps, there's only a very short amount of time until he lands, and they've only got that really small window to be able to collect the data and figure out what's going on.
Chris, are you familiar with the Star Trek Next Generation episode Cause and Effect, their time loop episode?
A tiny bit.
Tiny
bit.
Well, the beginning of that episode, the end of the teaser is the Enterprise blowing up. And I thought they were going to do something like that with this episode. And there was like a few different points where they could have ended the teaser, like after Ben dies, and that happened and there's silence. They could have just like faded to black and that could have been the teaser. He's dead. But they bring him back before the end of the teaser. And the other point is explosion. But they want to, I think they wanted to get the audience to understand the concept of each leap. So that's why they did the longest leap first and explained everything. And then we had all those like markers along the way, like when the Colonel lit the lighter to light his cigarette, whatever. And then, you know, different things like the mopping up the soda spill and different things.
The winding of the watch.
Winding of the watch. Was that a thing? Because, you know, time travel, did the watch have a different time every time, or was the watch not working because of the time loops?
Hard.
Okay.
I didn't watch that hard, but I think it might have been a clue for the audience. Even though it would be too obvious for it to be the trigger, I think it was a clue for the audience to say, keep your eyes open for things that are going on in every leap.
Almost like having Woolsey as a red herring for the person causing the explosion by looking at his watch, seeing how much longer he's got to live, kind of. Well, we have a lot to cover in this episode, so I think we're going to probably go to the interview with Joe Dinicol soon, but first... Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie. I'm here with Matt, as always, and today we have Joe Dinicol. It was Eugene in the control room with the pen.
Isn't it always?
Yes. We should have seen it from the start.
You look too young to have the IMDb you have. How long have you been working in this business?
Oh, dear. I have been working professionally for it's 30 years this year. To be fair, I started very young. I started in the theater when I was 9 years old. So and I've had I had a long career as a busboy and barback. I've taken, I've gone all over the place. It's not chock full of. I'm not that successful, but yes, I've been at this a very, very long time. My father was an actor, and my grandfather on my mother's side was an actor. They were both classical theater actors, and I come by this, as I like to say, very dishonestly. So yes, it's been a long road.
Do you remember some of your earlier roles?
I mean, my earlier roles. Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, I started at the Stratford Festival of Canada. I was there as a kid for 5 seasons, and I was in Antony and Cleopatra and Cyrano de Bergerac and Waiting for Godot and a number of shows. But my first role on film and TV was in a movie called Elvis Meets Nixon. And I played a character called 10-Year-Old Boy, which is a pivotal role, clearly. That Elvis, the basic idea is that Elvis went to meet Nixon to try and help with the war on drugs, while wildly addicted to drugs. And he went and he was sort of deputized as an officer of against drugs, maybe of the DEA. I don't really, I'm forgetting some of the details. And he meets this kid on the plane. That was my first role in a movie or a TV show.
This sounds like a film I need to see. Thank you.
Do you have any recollection of that in your brain? I know it's hard to remember.
Yeah, no, I remember it very clearly. I those sort of initial days on a set. I remember it was back when it was all filmed, and so everything took a great deal longer. So it wasn't uncommon. I had 4 or 5 lines. It was one scene, and I must have been there for 12 hours. I mean, you just kind of waited. Back then, you would wait around for what felt like days. But I remember my dad took me, and we could go to the craft service track. I mean, everything is so novel at that point. Now it sort of feels old hat that there's gummy bears and Ritz crackers everywhere you look. But back then it was a really novel experience. And also it was something, I grew up in the theater, and moving into film and TV was what sort of differentiated me from my dad and from my grandfather. And that was a decision I was very conscious of making. And so my first day on set was a really big deal, because I was starting to get really interested in movies and I think at the time just doing something different than my family. It felt sort of very inherited to be an actor for me at that age, and I wanted something that I could sort of forge my own path. And so those early days on set were really, really important, because I was kind of figuring out what I liked about acting and what I sort of brought to the table. So yeah, it was certainly a formative day as a 10-year-old boy.
Did you ever question that desire to go into acting? Like, after you'd had a few years doing TV and film, did you did you experiment with any more standard kinds of career, or was that
not
it?
really? I mean, I think I questioned it much later. I will say that some of my first jobs, I booked a couple of commercials back to back when I was about 13, and I almost quit because I hated doing commercials so much. I haven't done a commercial since then, since I was about 13, and just because it had, the problem is that being on a movie or even a TV show for an actor, if you're not acting, like if you're just standing there holding a candy bar, it has very little to do with you. It's not really an actor's medium. Theater is an actor's medium. So doing a commercial, if you like the acting part of the day, which can be very minimal a lot of the time, a commercial, there's almost none of it. And so it can be very mind-numbing to stand there and do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again with a bunch of disinterested people sitting on a couch telling you to say it this way, that way, and the other. So that was certainly a time I thought about maybe getting out of the business. But I mean, the reality is that like I said, I come from a family of performers. It's sort of, it's not hyperbole to say that it's in the genes in a lot of ways. It just nothing else ever seemed as exciting or important. Not important in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, there are much more important things, but to be present and to be alive and to be with other people creating something that there's just nothing like it. So I never, like I said, I worked in restaurants for years and years as a feature of being an out of work actor, but I never thought about, every time I thought about having another job, I realized, like, I thought for a while, maybe I want to be a lawyer. And then what I realized was I want to give the closing arguments in the movie as a lawyer. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to do a bunch of paperwork and school and nonsense. I want to say, I want to give a speech written by Aaron Sorkin or Patty Chayefsky, or, like, I'm not really that interested in the nuts and bolts of what being a lawyer actually is. I want to give a performance. I want to perform and get someone off, but that's acting. That's not being a lawyer. So the short answer is no, not really.
I noticed you did a lot of genre work in Arrow. And how did you get into being like a superhero, Ragman, and all that?
Well, that's an interesting one. I when those shows started happening, when Arrow started, the casting directors of those shows, predominantly David Rappaport, became a fan of mine years and years ago. I had auditioned for Gossip Girl, and he always really liked me. And I had auditioned for something else in the Arrowverse. I won't be too specific about what it was, and I wasn't quite right for it in the end, but there were some people pulling for me, and Greg Berlanti became a fan. And as big and powerful as Greg Berlanti is, he's one of the real human beings in show business, and he remembered me. And so when that didn't happen, about a year later, I got a call. An offer to come and be on Arrow, which is not something, I don't get offers ever, really. That's not where I am in my career. And he liked me and wanted to pay it forward and gave me that part. It was originally supposed to be a couple of episodes, and they ended up liking me and keeping me around for a little while. And so yeah, that was just one of those, if you're around long enough and you were, you do the work, and you're going to find, people say it's who it's who your fans are. Eventually you start to meet people, and as we're talking about Quantum Leap, show run by Martin Garrow, who's a great friend of mine. And we became friends because we loved working together. It wasn't that we were buddies and he put me in a show. We worked very closely on a TV show, and we really loved working together. And then we ended up becoming great friends. But, you work long enough in this business, and days on set are long. And if you like being around people, that can go a long way. Great art doesn't get made by people hating each other. I don't think. I'm sure it's possible, but especially TV, it's a grind to make TV, especially an hour-long drama. The days are long, the years are long. Network TV, they work 9, 10. I was on Grey's Anatomy for a little while. They worked almost 11 months of the year. Like, it's a grueling schedule. And if you don't like the people you're around, it can be even more grueling. So you're just always trying to make fans. And that's sort of how I ended up on Arrow.
Was it Blind Spot with Martin that pretty much got you Quantum Leap? Did you get the offer for Quantum Leap, or did that work?
No, I auditioned. I got Blind Spot because Martin and I had done a show together called the LA Complex, which was a short-lived show on the CW that is very near and dear to all of us who were on. It was sort of about a group of disparate, out of work show business hopefuls. I played a stand-up comedian, and there was, there was a dancer and a bunch of actors and someone trying to be a music producer. And it was very critically adored, and nobody watched it. So, but we all loved making it. And it was sort of, it's how I met Martin. It's how we became friends. And when Blind Spot came around, he was, that show could be very heavy, and it was, it was a procedural, and it had a lot of FBI and intrigue. And I think he had wanted to infuse more humor into it and more heart. And so he had written this part. He called me and said, I wrote a part for you. We're going to make everyone fall in love with you, and then we're going to kill you and break everyone's heart. And so I was like, well, that sounds fun. He's like, and we shoot it in New York. So that's how that happened. And then Quantum Leap, I got an audition and I auditioned and ended up getting it, so it's how these things work, and the machinations of the higher ups of show business is certainly beyond my pay grade. So sometimes you get an offer and that's great, and sometimes you have to go through the regular channels, and it's all the same to me at the end of the day. But certainly I'm sure Martin was looking out for my audition. I would hope, but yeah.
So how long was it from auditioning to actually being on set?
Oh gosh, probably maybe a week. Yeah, the guest star role in television is a fast moving train. They're making these things. You forget they have to not only write them, they have to get them approved, and they have to, everything is in a condensed timeline. So sets are being built, and so hiring people, especially a show like Quantum Leap, I would imagine, which is almost an entirely new cast every episode. Other than obviously the core in the Quantum Leap lab and Ben and Addison, but every episode, it's not like they're always at the office and there's one new person. He's meeting a whole world of people in every episode, as you know. So yeah, it all moves pretty quickly. Yeah, it was probably, I want to say it was about a week, maybe a little longer, but not much.
Can you take me through the process of filming an episode like this, the one with time loops? Like, are the camera setups the same, and you just go through each different time loop and do it differently, or are you doing it more in order? Or it doesn't make it more difficult than a normal guest starring role on a TV show when you have to do the same things over and over again, but different?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, the first thing we did quite smartly, I think, was to do the opening of what would then be the thing we loop around over and over again, just so that we could set what happens. So we go, that's the longest version of it that we see. So this is what we do beginning to end, and everyone, that's sort of what makes it difficult, is it's not like what's great about filming a film or a TV show is you finish a scene, that's it. You don't have to think about it again, Whereas this, you're kind of going, okay, well, on this line, I picked up the pencil, and on that line, I pressed this button. And you're kind of, much like you would rehearse a play, you're sort of blocking it out to be recreated later. And then sort of as you go on, it gets a little easier because, for instance, pretty much all the stuff in the elevator in one day, we just sort of went, everything that happens in the elevator, we do from this camera angle. And then they move it over to the side and they go, everything that happens over here, and they go up top. It's called block shooting, right? So everything, we try and use the set efficiently so that we're not relighting. I say we like I'm lighting anything. I'm not lighting anything. That's against the rules. But but yeah, so it sort of starts out a little more laborious for something like this because you're really trying to track and set up, because you don't want to get to day 5 and go, oh, we forgot that he was supposed to do this thing because that's what matters in this version of the loop. So you're trying to track, but the writing on this episode was really, really airtight. It was a really beautifully written script and a really fun, and everything had been thought of. And the writer was there every day. She was there every day, and had obviously, given this a great deal of thought so that everything could be sort of perfectly marked as we went through. So realistically, the most difficult part of it, I think, was mostly for Ray, who had to constantly be changing costumes. I know usually he leaps into someone and that's the episode. And this one, he leapt into 5 people. So when we're doing the elevator, we do one thing, he's me, then he has to change into the Colonel, then he has to change, he's constantly changing into different costumes. But yeah, it sort of gets easier as you go, as you realize, like, okay, we've set everything right. And now we just have to, you're kind of checking things off a list. You're going, okay, well, now we have to do the scene this way where he's this person and the fireball comes in at this time, or, whatever it is. But yeah, it's a bit of a fun puzzle to figure out and go, we want to set this up right. Because the last thing you want is for it not to pay off. You want the idea that, you do an episode where it's basically all in one set. It's got to feel like it's got momentum and it's got, movement and stakes. And I think the writing, especially on this episode, and the direction, Pamela was such an incredible director. And yeah, they just did a great job. So yeah, it sort of started out a little more laborious, and then it sort of picks up steam.
Did you get much extra prep time yourself to get your head around all that? Because I sort of imagine the writer and director probably had like storyboards up with kind of the red string pointing to everything, but as actors, were you all just being led through it, or did you spend some time beforehand, kind of head down, the hell is this all about?
Yeah, I think like the other thing you have to remember is that in something like this, we're not aware that it's happening again, right? Like none of us are aware that this is a Groundhog Day type situation. So you're trying to look at it from as if that opening chunk is the whole day. That's all it is, right? There's not a new arc for you when they loop back. It's just restarting the same thing. So really you're looking at that and going like, within this, from my point of view, what's happening? What do I need to clock? And especially for me, like, what do I need to sort of sprinkle in there? Not too much, but but yeah. And again, like I said, it was so well written that it was very clear there was no point where you're like, well, wait a second, this is supposed to happen, but we didn't do that there was none of that, because it was a really airtight script. But to answer your actual question, no, we don't get a lot of time. Again, guest starring on a show, you're kind of dropped in, and that's a skill you sort of have to develop as an actor in television. It's like, you have to be able to learn lines very quickly and adapt, meet a whole, crew and cast of people, drop in and luckily on something like Quantum Leap, this is, first of all, a show run by Martin Garrow is these things are top down, or is always just a treat. He sets a tone in his shows that no assholes allowed, and everyone's working towards the greater good, and there's no egomaniacs, and that comes from him, but it also comes from Ray and Caitlin, who also set an incredible tone and are welcoming and kind and fun and excited to be there, and excited to have whoever's there that week. Like, we're their castmates, it's not like there's one person joining a crew of people that are always there. It's like they have a whole new cast to play with, and they were extremely welcoming. So, because, you don't get a lot of time in TV, but fortunately on this one, that wasn't much of an issue.
With such a small cast, and with all of your scenes basically being with each other the whole time, and the block shooting, did you guys form a bond, like more than you would as a normal guest star coming in to do a few scenes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we did. The guy who played the Colonel, him and I hit it off, got on like a house on fire. I found out that he did a movie with my grandfather called Baby's Day Out, and he was a theater guy, and we started talking theater. And again, you're sitting around all day, and in the best of cases, you're a bunch of actors who just got a job. You should be pretty happy. It's a nice place to be. I live in North Hollywood, and we shot this on the Universal lot. I've never shot on the Universal lot. It's 15 minutes from my house. You're driving as the sun's coming up. You drive onto, arguably the most iconic studio lot in California, and someone brings you breakfast if you want. It's a good day. It should be a good day. And I think everyone took that, and we all had a real blast. Robert Picardo was having a great time, and he's a real pro, and we got along famously. And again, the cast was so welcoming and really set a tone of, we're here to do great work and to have fun. It should be fun. It's not coal mining. It's we're making fun art that should be a good time. And it really was.
Is it true that you've met Scott Bakula at some point?
Yeah, I have. I guess kind of briefly. So when I was about, like I said, I've done this a long time, and I'm Canadian. I've been in LA for about 10 years now, but I came up working in Toronto, and back. This is a long time ago. Let's just say that I was a teenager, and back then they used to do hundreds and hundreds of pilots. Most of them never went to series. Now it's a lot more selective. They spend their money, I think, a lot more wisely. But they used to make tons of these things. And in Toronto, every once in a while, they would have a call, for some show, and you never heard anything. And so I had auditioned for some sitcom or single cam, some comedy, right? It was called Father Can't Cope. About a dad whose kids are this and his wife, and they're trying to go on a trip or something. I don't really remember. Starring Scott Bakula. And I get a call saying, you're the guy. They watched your tape, you're the guy. And they want to fly you down to LA to meet you. You're the guy, right? And so I fly down with my mom. I was 16. They put us up in a hotel, and we get driven over to Fox, and I walk in the room, and I look around, and there's 6 other the guys, and so I realize, okay, this is a screen test. This is my first screen test, and I go into the room to audition, and there's Scott Bakula, and he reads with us. He's very, very sweet, and we all do it a number of times, and they come out and they call 3 of our names. Mine was one. We go over to the network. And I walk into a room, and Scott is sitting there in front of me, very kind, very encouraging. And I look up, and there's no joke, 50 people in sort of an auditorium style room. And in all honesty, I buckled. Like I had no idea this was what it was going to be like. And I started shaking like a leaf. Like no one prepared me for what, I've since done a number of network tests, and they're nerve wracking, but you know what to expect. People are there to kind of judge you or, what have you. But I had no idea what to expect. He was very, very kind. The show shot the pilot, and you've never heard of the show Father Can't Cope, so it never went anywhere. But that is my somewhat loose connection to Scott Bakula.
That's a very cool connection.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's all right. He was like my first acting trip to LA was with Scott Bakula.
That's pretty good.
That's all right.
One weird technical question I had when I was watching the episode, I saw they had a photo of you and Robert Picardo kind of de-aged. Was that like one of your old photos, or did you guys go in and do a little photo session and then they photoshopped it, or how did that work?
Yeah, we they did a little photo shoot in the offices, and I actually didn't do it with him. we're not in the same room. And then everything they do digitally. I mean, now they do everything. The amount they can do digitally is so incredible. So they were just like, just stand like this, we'll do the rest. So yeah, no, that was not an old picture of me. I don't know if they referenced old pictures or they just made me look like that. But yeah, that's all movie magic.
So they did Photoshop you and Bob together, but not for the reason we might have thought.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we ended up being together for many days, but by that point we're already shooting and they needed the photo, and I think he was coming in a day later or something, so it's one of those scheduling things.
For most of the episode, all the guest cast is pretty much equal parts because they're all suspects and they're all in every scene. Yeah. But towards the end of the episode, when we actually find out what happened and who's doing what, it more becomes your episode as like the main guest star because of just that last scene between you and Raymond.
Yes.
There was a lot going on in there, like emotion, and you had to communicate why and you were doing it and your mental state. And I think you did a really great job in the episode. What was that? Did that add to the level of difficulty, or from your experience, is it just like another day at work?
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons it's fun to do. I mean, getting to do a meaty scene is, it can be difficult. Certainly, you're trying to perform well. Robert Klein, the famous comedian, said, "Everyone can be funny. Can you be funny at 8:00 on a Saturday?" Right? Like, you have to be able to turn these things on. That's just part of the job. So it's certainly challenging to muster up wanting to kill a room full of people and what is your reason, and sort of building up why you would do something like that. That's sort of the work that goes into it beforehand. The only time that becomes really challenging is if you're trying to do a scene like that with someone who's not present with you or giving you something back, and luckily that's not the case. Ray is such an amazing scene partner that it ends up being kind of not easy, but it's that's what we love to do. Acting's not about winning. It's about allowing yourself to lose on screen and be affected. And so when you're given permission, or you give yourself permission to do that, that's what acting is at its best, I think. So yeah, it's certainly challenging, and it's a long day and there's a lot of angles and that stuff can get tiring emotionally, but that's what you train for. That's what you you got to get enough sleep and not eat too much sugar. And that's the job, is you have to be emotionally fit, basically. So yeah, it's challenging, but it's really, really, I mean, that's the good stuff. That's what makes it worthwhile.
Did you know you had that good stuff coming up when you auditioned, or were you just given the part as, hey, nerdy scientist guy, that's it, run with it? And
no, I think one of the audition scenes was the turn at the end, or at least part of it. So I did know that it was me, which is a fun thing to play throughout the episode, because I think that's why you cast someone like me. I kind of look like nothing bad has ever happened to me, you put the glasses on and you go like, this guy, he can do anything bad. So that's kind of the fun part, is trying to bury that, but also have little red herrings here and there, and foreshadowing that doesn't tip the scale, but also is something that maybe if you go back and watch, you go, oh, okay, I see that moment there. I see what he was doing. So yeah, it's a fun little puzzle to kind of put together.
Yeah, I was watching this episode with my daughter Serenity, and she was very adamant that it wasn't your character. So she wanted me to tell you did a great job, and
yay!
Her. Does it add another level to playing the character when you know you're the one who did it, and you have to act like you didn't do it, but act like at the same time you know you did it?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, I think that's kind of that's the fun challenge. Like, I often think of you've seen the movie The Departed. The Leonardo DiCaprio role in that movie is very interesting because he has to do a lot of things. He has to be nervous that he's undercover in the mob. We have to, as the audience, have to know he's nervous, but we also have to believe that they don't know he's nervous, right? Because he's pulling it off. So it's a very interesting balancing act of trying to, you know, in the best case scenario, Serenity doesn't think it's me, but if she goes back and watches it again, she can go, oh, right, of course it's him. You know, that's, I don't know if we did that, we'll see, but like that sort of best case scenarios, you're trying to drop things that maybe on second viewing or when the turn is revealed, your brain goes, oh, right, of course, right? That's the sort of the fine line you're trying to walk. But that's a tricky thing to do. But I think the way that the episode was constructed was so well done that you kind of never get quite enough time with people to really see what's going on with them. I mean, I was certainly playing or experiencing moments of stress that I might be found out, but you know, you're also covering them up and then it's up to the editors and the director to put it together in a way that is, you know, it's like a great murder mystery. It's yeah, that's kind of the fun of it, but we're certainly trying for that. So thank you, Serenity. That makes me very happy that she never suspected me.
Not a bit. She really loved the episode. My final silly question is, did you get to keep the pen?
I didn't keep the pen, but I did keep my ID badge, which I kept. Well, I kept partly because the prop master just gave it to me. He was like, everyone wants something like this. And the reason I wanted it is because my character name, Eugene Wagner. Wagner is the last name of every character I've played in Martin's shows. So in the LA Complex, I was Nick Wagner, and in Blind Spot, I was David Wagner. And so that was a nice little thing for us, named after a friend of ours, and something that one of the things Martin likes to put in his shows, these kind of fun little Easter eggs. And so that was a real thrill for us. I also always wear glasses in his shows. So, but I didn't keep the pen, unfortunately, but I did keep the ID badge. I've got that just over yonder.
Very cool.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Very cool. Do you have any upcoming projects you can tell us about?
Yeah, I am. One I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about yet. The other is I produced and starred in a movie that I made with a close friend of mine, Sebastian Piggott. It's a movie called Bring It All Back Home. We just finished editing it and we're sort of submitting to festivals. It's our first foray into making things on our own. And so we're so proud of it. It's some of the best work I've ever done, certainly. And it's a really, really personal film. So we're hoping to get that into as many festivals and in front of as many people as possible. It's, you know, independent film. It's difficult. And then I have, like I said, I have something I'm not sure if I'm allowed to announce that I'm a part of coming up. I believe it'll come out maybe in the spring or the summer. I'm not sure. They don't tell me anything.
Okay,
IMDb has.
We'll be on the lookout for
IMDb
that.
has something called Hindsight listed for you.
Oh yes, so, that was a really cool thing I did. It's a podcast, like a scripted podcast. That's very, very cool. It's we did it all on a stage, so everything was mic'd, and we got to do it sort of like a play, as opposed to sitting in front of a lectern and talking. We did it all like and it's sort of it involves it involves magic and mystery, and I don't want to say too much about it, but it's a really, really cool project that I'm excited to hear it myself. I know that they're working on it. And it's very cool. It's going to be a very cool project. So yeah, look out for that. Look out for Hindsight and Bring It All Back Home, which I'm so stoked about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I saw the poster for Bring It All Back Home, and it has an interesting tagline, so I'm intrigued.
Yes. Yeah. It's a line from the movie that will make more sense when you see the movie.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll definitely check that out.
Oh, awesome.
And finally, can you tell me like what your takeaway is from working on Quantum Leap, and just the whole process of filming it and just being a part of now another genre universe, Quantum Leap?
Yeah, I mean, I think like anything, I used to feel this way about Arrow. It's very cool to be a part of a a cultural touchstone, you know, and in the case of Quantum Leap, you know, this is a show that deals in identity and understanding other people's identity, and that's something that's really prescient right now and something that's really important. And so to have a show that's handling that intelligently and gracefully, but also in a fun way, in an entertaining way, it's just a real honor to just be a part of it. You know, I'm such a fan of film and TV and that stuff. So to get to be a part of it that's one of the reasons I do this. You know, we don't do it to be in a vacuum. I like that people see it, that you guys saw it, that people watch it, they have opinions, good or bad, it doesn't really matter. And so to be a part of a show that I think is doing something not only entertaining, but important to for once a week to think about what would it be like to be in someone else's shoes. That's something pretty important, I think, right now. So I'm really honored.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you guys. Yeah.
Hi, this is Susan Diol, and you are listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow. I'm Albie, and with me always is Harold.
It's Hayden, by the way.
Hayden. Oh, Hayden. Okay. And this week we have
no
special
worries,
guest.
Alabama. Don't worry.
This week we have a special guest panelist. We have Chris Baldwin. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, fantastic, and I'm excited to be here with you guys talking about Quantum Leap. Yeah,
we're so glad to have you. I'm glad it finally worked out, the scheduling of everything, and it's great to have you on this episode.
I think there must be a glitch in the Matrix. You know, I'm feeling deja vu for some reason.
Interesting.
You and I both.
Henry's silly. Henry is silly. Okay, we'll start off. I want to start off this episode. Let's talk about the characters individually. Like I think there was 5 characters total, not counting Ben, Addison, people back at the headquarters, but on the Leap. So maybe we'll start first with let's talk about Eugene, the scientist with the pen. I think he was a good character in the episode, and I did not suspect him whatsoever the whole time. What do you think, Chris? No, I didn't.
I didn't suspect him either. I thought he was just a Joe Schmo that was there for the heck of it to do his job and then want to go home. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I watch far too much TV because I immediately said, "Yeah, he did it," and I think
you
it's
always
because
say that though.
Yeah,
how do you always figure it out?
I'm serious though. I think it's because when I was watching it, I'm like, well, who here would actually want to see it destroyed? And obviously not the guy who made it. And it seemed like everyone else didn't really have any kind of a major connection to it. So it seems like the only one who would have any reason to is the one that's got some sort of connection. And yeah, so maybe I just watch far too much TV because, yeah, I picked it immediately.
Chris, did you know it was Eugene in the control room with the pen?
No. I was kind of surprised and shocked. It was just like...
Yeah, I think part of it too was the missing pages, and I thought, hang on, something's going on here with this guy. Why are his pages missing? Why isn't he able to write anything? You know, what's going on? So, yeah, maybe I was just too heavily invested having an idea that there was this time loop going on. Maybe I was looking for clues before everyone else was.
Well, any suspicions I had kind of got put aside when Ben leapt into Eugene, and the place still blew up anyway. So it couldn't have been Eugene.
Right.
It couldn't have been
exactly. Eugene. No, it could have not been. It was kind of like a dead giveaway. You gotta kind of get more into it instead of just guessing at the beginning, like, who is it? Oh my gosh! Like, what's happening? Like, you gotta kind of like go into depth of the episode and be like, oh, whoa, okay, makes you think what's going on,
The only time I did kind of suspect Eugene was when they were showing the photo of Eugene and Woolsey on the wall, and we had seen that he had been an assistant for Woolsey for quite a while since he was young. And part of me thought back then they had like Soviet embedded Soviet people that lived their lives as Americans until it was time to do something. So I thought they were going to go along that line to where he was actually like a Russian spy trying to sabotage the project, but had been in Woolsey's life for a long time in order to get to the right place at the right time. So when I did kind of suspect Eugene, I was totally off on the reasoning. So I didn't really figure it out at all until you get that look from Joe Dinicol, which he did a great performance, I think, in this episode, by the way, especially that last bit where it was him that did it. I really think he did a good job because he went right from nerdy scientist, what did two hydrogen atoms say when they're what does it say, goodbye or something? How did hydrogen atoms say goodbye? Yeah, that split. Part. Yeah, to like his face changes and then he's like, yeah, it's me, I did it, and all that stuff. So yeah, I think he did great in the episode. I wish we got a chance to talk to him.
I also liked the way that they wrote him in the episode too, because ultimately I thought he was a very sympathetic character and someone who, under other circumstances, I think I could back, because I wouldn't want such powerful nuclear technology to get into the hands of weapons makers either. So yeah, I thought that what they wrote there did make him very sympathetic, and I do like how Ben was able to convince him not to do it in the end. But at the same time, I also like the fact that they tried to address getting the technology for its actual original planned use rather than what was going to end up being the case thanks to the government interference.
Mm-hmm. Henry has a good point. But I was thinking...
it's Hayden, by the way.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking...
it's okay, almond milk.
I was thinking it was interesting to show how someone, the character of Eugene again, going back, how someone can have this idea of like what they must do to save the world, let's say, because he was the hero in his own story, Eugene, for blowing it up and saving the world from nuclear weapons and explosions and stuff. But he was in his own little universe, not really thinking about the big picture, where Ben explains at the end when he's in the body of Moe Murphy about how, yeah, this is one, but the government's going to make 100 more, and this thing that you do has no real beneficial effect, and you're just ruining these people's lives. So I really like that story woven into this. Chris?
It was he was a good character, and I mean, and in depth, it was like, what's going to happen next? Who's going to die next? Just because, like, after Ben died, it was just like jaw dropping. Like what's going on? Is this some sort of movie thing going on, like with time travel? Yeah, or even
it would have been interesting. Sorry, Chris. It would have been interesting, maybe, especially if you didn't know that it was going to go into the time loop. I mean, Albie and I saw the episode title in advance, but I know I don't think that a lot of other people would have. Maybe another route they could have gone, or maybe ways that people might think in their heads to get around this, would be someone else from the project would have to leap back and try and save Ben while he's there. And wouldn't that have been cool if we ended up with every time the bomb goes off, another member of the crew having to go and leap back, so we end up with all 5 of them in the leap instead?
Wow, that would have been super cool. Like, okay, now it's your turn to try. That would have been awesome. I was thinking that it would have been really cool to see Ben be in, like, each time loop, like, be cumulative, and then like Ben would be in all the 5 people at the end, and 5 Bens working together to figure out how to solve it. But I think Matt pointed out on the main podcast that just writing that storyline, just logically, you couldn't do it. None of it would make sense. But that's kind of what I was hoping for. But then when I realized it was a time reset,
well, then again, Quantum Leap itself doesn't really make that much sense either. You have to really analyze it to make it make sense. And I'm sure us massive, fanboys are going to come up with ways in universe to make it make sense anyway.
Mm-hmm. Quantum Leap is still real to me, damn it.
Right. My guess would have been like, is this set up for another Leaper to come in, as in one of the evil Leapers yet? Are they going to be starting that? Are they already starting that? You gotta kind of get the moral of what's going on, and
well, we haven't heard from Leaper X in a long time either, so
right. I was just gonna say that
maybe Leaper X could have been somewhere there as well.
Right, we haven't heard from Leaper X for a while. So is is Leaper X coming back and making an appearance? And that would be the perfect that would have been a good episode to set the stage for that. What's happening, what's going on. I mean, because we haven't heard from the other Leaper for a long time, for a couple episodes.
It's strange that we haven't heard from Leaper X, because that was a big dun 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 reveal, oh my goodness moment at the end of that episode, Salvation or Bust. And I would think that would have been a continuing storyline that would have started from there, and they'd keep going back to it. And they did reference it in the next episode when Jen and Magic went to visit the person that's ultimately going to become Leaper X. But then after a few episodes without Leaper X, I was thinking to myself, well, this is kind of genius, because it is a time travel show. So even if it's a storyline that starts in season 2 or 3, they put the episode here because they can. Because if they're writing ahead, it's a time travel show. So you can see Leaper X in halfway through the beginning part of season 1, and it doesn't even start the story until season 2 or something like that. So it might just be some genius thing.
Head, nuclear missile time. Okay. My theory is, we know that Ben has pre-programmed all these leaps. My theory is that he has gone and analyzed what has been changing because of Leaper X's interventions, and Ben's having to go and kind of clean up some of the messes that Leaper X has left. Like in this one, perhaps it was Leaper X who got involved in the governmental side of things to have those the nuclear technology be used for the nuclear weapons. Maybe in the previous episode where he was the doctor, where Ben was the doctor, maybe Leaper X is the one that caused the train crash. Maybe I forget which episode was before that. The bodyguard one, wasn't it?
Yeah, the was it the bodyguard one or the?
I think so. Yeah,
it was the bodyguard one.
Yeah, maybe Leaper X was the one who. I'm trying to think what the big thing might have been there, but do you get what I'm thinking? Maybe there's not really much that Ben can do to stop Leaper X from actually doing their action, but maybe he can clean up some of the after effects.
I just had an idea as you were speaking to this. Wouldn't it be great if there was a whole episode coming up that would just focused on Leaper X's point of view of all these things, like causing the train crash and doing all these other things that Ben we see solve before we see Leaper X doing it? Because that would be amazing. And that episode ending with Leaper X confronting Dr. Ben Song from the year 2022.
I also think that Leaper X has something to do with, everybody is guessing what's going to happen to Addison and her death. I think it has to do with Leaper X. I do. And we just haven't, seen Leaper X for a while. So that's going to, I think Leaper X is going to make some appearances soon, hopefully. And we'll see what happens, But I just think that Leaper X has something to do, once again, with Addison's death. It's
very possible. I part of me thinks that the reason they're doing this also is because how like on most stories they'll introduce a character in the beginning and they don't really use them until later on in the story, till after you've already almost forgotten about them. I think the audience that's
Chekhov's
watching
missile.
week to week, yeah, exactly. I think the audience that's watching week to week, the casual viewer, not the people that obsess about it like us, but the casual viewer probably have forgotten about Leap X altogether. So it'd be a great time to bring back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm wondering if you're starting to see. Are you all right?
Sorry, Hillbilly Jim. You can go.
Oh, it's Hayden, by the way. But
Oh.
yeah, don't worry about it, Alf. It's all forgiven. Yeah. But I wonder if they're trying to build this overarching umbrella or this theme across all the episodes that government just can't be trusted. Because look at it this way. Quantum Leap is a government operation, which, according to Janice, is going to somehow become corrupted and used for nefarious purposes. But we've even got in this episode, in the Leap itself, Ben has to eventually stop the nuclear technology from being used by the government to create nuclear weapons. And I'm sure that there's many, many other examples we could find if we went and sifted through all the other episodes that, the government interference is not a good thing. And maybe that's what maybe that's a reason why Ben had to leap, because he's the one who isn't going to care too much what the government says. Whereas Addison, I think, being the military person, and Magic as well as the leader, they're the ones that are going to take all the directives and ultimately will be the ones that say, oh, but I was just following orders, yeah.
Well, I think as a general rule, it's just logical to not trust the government, because the government is a group of people, and you can have 98% of that group of people actually acting in the best interest of their citizens, but it only takes 2% to ruin it for the rest of us. And you're always going to have those people that are in it for themselves and have their own special interests that take advantage of their position of being in control of a large group of people. So it's always good to be wary of the government, I think, and stuff like that. Speaking of Leaper X and Salvation or Bust, in this episode, we actually were able to get an interview with the director Silas Howard, who directed Salvation or Bust.
Oh.
And I'd like to go to that in a little bit. But first, hello and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie, and I'm so happy to have with us today the director of Salvation or Bust, Silas Howard. How you doing, Silas?
I'm good. How are you? I'm
really good. I'm excited to get to talk to you, because I really enjoyed your episode of Quantum Leap, because that's what we're here to talk about mostly. But in researching you a little bit for our conversation today, I discovered a whole bunch of cool things that you did, so I'd like to talk about them too. But before I get ahead of myself, could you just tell us how you got into the entertainment business, what made you want to be a director, and like your journey to get you to directing films and television?
Yeah. It's a bit of a backwards sort of journey. I made a feature film before I made any short film or studied or made anything else. My best friend and I co-directed, co-starred, and co-wrote a feature called By Hook or By Crook that played at Sundance and South by, and got theatrical, and is now its 20-year anniversary. So so we just sort of leapt without looking and made this, and then realized how do I practice directing? How do I didn't realize you have to be independently wealthy often to do independent film, because it doesn't really pay. So I bought some time by going to UCLA and got my graduate degree in film, and made some crappy shorts, and then made some shorts I liked, and sort of worked on the craft of directing and collaborating with actors. And then I came out in the middle of the economy crash and made a second feature that was a similar budget, micro budget, and just directed anything I could get my hands on, web series, music videos. I just kept practicing the craft, and And eventually I was able to land a directing job with Transparent, my first episode of television, and worked on 2 seasons. And from there, I got to really be involved with a lot of shows that were breaking ground with different kind of character representation. And I did a 3rd feature with a big cast, still decently sort of small budget. And my last feature was my first studio one, which is Darby and the Dead, that I made with Hulu and 20th Century Fox.
I just got finished watching that Darby and the Dead. I really enjoyed that. It was really good. It reminded me of like 80s teen comedy, but in a good way, and also absolutely modern, like all mixed together, blended perfectly. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, we were really playing with the Mean Girls, like the elevator pitch is Mean Girls meets Sixth Sense, because she sees dead people and helps them. So it's not really horror; it's more comedy. But yeah, we wanted it to be an homage to those 80s Mean Girl kind of 80s and 90s films, but reflect the world around us, which is a much more inclusive world. One thing the films in that era were lacking, unfortunately.
Right. I thought it was cool that Tony Danza was in it, because I remember him from, I think, She's Out of Control, was it?
Yeah. He was amazing. I mean,
what's it like directing like Tony Danza and Octavia Spencer? We'll get into that later, but
yeah. Tony was, I grew up watching him on TV shows like Taxi and She's the Boss, and so it was like he walked out of the television set of my childhood and onto the set. We shot in Cape Town, South Africa, is where we shot the film. So he came quite a long ways to do the role, and he was phenomenal. I mean, he just cared about every little detail, and he brought a ukulele to set some days, and he played, music for the crew, and he was just so great with our lead. Like he plays a very good friend of hers in the film, so he really bonded with her, and he was just very gracious and generous. And he looks great. He's very Tony Danza. It's fabulous.
Cape Town, South Africa. I had no idea. It looked like LA or, Canada or anywhere else. Why did you go to South Africa to film that?
It was, with these budgets, I think they have tax incentives that make it very tempting to film in New Zealand and Cape Town. There was a producer they worked with before that shot 3 the Kissing Booth movies there, and she worked with us. She was fantastic. And so we had a local crew, and we had a lot of local casting. Our main cast was from the U.S. for the most part, but our department heads were from all over Manchester, from Taipei, and from Cape Town. So it was an incredible opportunity. Just the landscape, and I went and met an elephant. I don't know if you can see the elephant.
Oh, cool!
Met an elephant right
very
there.
Cool.
I got a tattoo.
Oh,
but it
wow.
was very
very
cool.
Cool.
It was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed that film. I plan to watch it with my daughter when she gets back from her mom. She's with her mom for the holidays, but I think she'll enjoy it. The end of that movie, I don't want to spoil it for too many people, but in the part of the movie where you see the mother and there's that music cue, I just lost it. It was pretty unexpected, but I got emotionally involved in the story. So.
Oh, I'm so glad. I really wanted it to be comedic in unexpected places and emotional in unexpected places. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you really nailed it. So I recommend that to anybody. It's on Hulu right now, streaming on Hulu. So can we talk a little bit about A Kid Named Jake? I watched that as well, and I just absolutely love that film. How do you get involved with that?
Yeah, Jim Parsons, who plays one of the leads with Claire Danes. It was his production company's first project, and they brought it to me. And he and Claire Danes were attached, but we weren't funded yet. So I worked with the brilliant writer on the script a little bit. We went out and we got the rest of our cast: Octavia Spencer, Ann Dowd, Priyanka Chopra, and Amy Landecker. It was just a phenomenal cast. And we got our financing, and we were able to film the 2 months that Jim and Claire were off from TV to do this movie. And it was just a really beautiful exploration in like parenting and handling differences, like we celebrate differences, but we also punish differences, and anybody can fall prey to that out of wanting to protect, we can do the wrong things for the right reason, often. So, yeah. Just the setup is that they're the parents of a gender expansive, expressive little boy who loves princess things, and they're trying to get into a New York school, which is very competitive, and they end up kind of going down the rabbit hole of like, is it okay to highlight this? What does it mean? And they kind of surprise themselves and then come back together through that process.
Mm-hmm. Really beautiful film and so real. That's the best way I can describe it, is real. Like, so many moments in it seemed absolutely real. I'm sure it has a lot to do with your direction, the writing, and also the actors involved. Like when the leads are having a argument that they don't want to be having, and that moment when the couple comes back from the hospital and Claire Danes just looks around. Like, I've lived that moment myself, and I think it was just, I've never seen it represented in film before, and I just thought it was amazing.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That kind of gave me chills. Yeah, I think that moment when she walks in, I'm also blown away by Claire, her performance, and it just like she transforms in a way. It's just she's so in it, and yeah, it's one of my favorite fight scenes to ever direct, because I think, sometimes people say the worst things to get to the other side of it, to forgive each other, to like, but oh yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I think we talked a lot about it and about that moment, and that it's not often explored. So yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's like you come in your house and you look around and you had all these expectations and goals for the future, and like slowly you're looking around and they're all disappearing. So I think that was handled beautifully. So great film.
Thank you.
Definitely go check it out. I watched it on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure where else it's available, but it's out there. So it's really worth the watch.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
It's awesome that you made such great films, and also you're doing so much television too. How did you get involved with Quantum Leap? How did that come about?
They came to me actually, which was really exciting. I know of the original, and when I interviewed with them, I said, the concept has always appealed to me, and as a trans person, I can imagine leaping into another body. I kind of felt that way when I went from being in the world in a female, recognized way, and then passing and being recognized as a male. And I think that's a rare journey, I've always said it. I felt like an unintentional gender spy because of that experience, and but it also has created a lot of empathy in me, and understanding sort of paradoxes and how we're all trying to be the right kind of man or woman or father or parent or girlfriend. It's just like we're all sort of struggling and trying to find our way, and so I feel like the way, and also that the show, I'm really obsessed with hidden histories, or unrecovered histories, because there's a lot of things that happen that just don't make it into the books or even in our storytelling. And so Quantum Leap had that appeal to me as well, as just going back and saying like, hey, actually all of us have been around forever. It's just that either the language wasn't there, or it wasn't permissible, to be in front of the screen, in front of the camera, or part of the history books.
Was the trans character in the episode Salvation or Bust, was that in there before they brought you on, or was that something you added? Or
no, actually, yeah, that was in the episode, and I was really excited because it was a really amazing. The writers are incredible on it, and we cast Marquise Filson, who I've worked with on A League of Their Own, and who's a phenomenal actor. And I was really excited reading that this character was trans, and that the writing didn't really talk about it at all. And it was kind of a fun moment to be like, oh, because Marquise, he will definitely be read as male. I don't think anyone would know he was trans. Then we talked about, do we want to tip the scale just a little bit more to hint at it? And that's like such a wonderful luxury, because the fast moving pace of trans representation has been phenomenal, but then there's a lot of complicated things of like, we need you to look trans, or we need you to not look trans. And like, it can be kind of, this was done so beautifully, where we got to just talk about the nuance and play with what it feels like, and also, there's the intersection of race and gender, in this story. And yeah, it was just fun to do that all through a genre, and through the Old West and what the Old West means to so many people.
Yeah, when we watched the episode, we had no idea he was a trans person, and the character either, until we got to interview Marquise. So then we found out. So it up so much meaning, because we knew there was something there and it was important, but we weren't sure what. So I think that was great. So.
Yeah, it was really very, very subtle. We just added a little bit about like him talking the way he was born. But same with Darby, you know, there's a character who's trans, and we just mentioned it one time in the locker room and kind of just let it.
Oh yeah,
let it move on
I laughed. I laughed at that part. She's like still trans.
Really yeah, and
Was
the
the
friend's
actor
like, "Oh
trans
yeah,
as well?"
yeah, absolutely."
I didn't have a chance to look.
Nicole.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. That's why we talked about it, because I was aware. I said to her, "Yeah, your character is queer, but let's decide if you're out as trans or not." And so we decided together that would be the moment. Did some improv, and I felt like it was just perfect because she still got to be a teenager and a mean girl, and all these other things. But we let that just live in the room for a minute, especially the girls' locker room, in particular. So yeah, it was really fun. And same with this. It's it's such a luxury to have stories where the people are people first, and then we unfold things about their experience as the story moves on,
as it should be, I think. Yeah, so that was just handled well. that was good. So what's it like directing a Western? Were you ever into Westerns? Was that a new thing for you?
I mean, it was really the cinematographer is phenomenal, and she unfortunately had COVID our third day in, because we planned all these epic, and there were amazing cinematographers that came in. It was just, we had this very Western, playing with shadows, playing with long shadows, playing with a lot of sky and certain angles. Because it's TV, not all of those fancy shots got to live in. We had a nice sort of top down when the horses, when the bad guy comes in and there's just the shadows across the dusty terrain. But we were filming in a 105-degree heat wave. It was an intense week to be on the backlot, but also we were on the backlot. It's the most famous Western set, and it's been in every Western movie, Hollywood Western. And so I felt like we were really, getting to bring our own sort of brand of Western to it, and onto a really iconic set. Yeah.
Was that Anna that was the director of photography of that episode?
Yeah, she's amazing. She's such an artist, and I think she comes from choreography or dance, but I can feel it in her lighting and in her handling of what's in the frame, and how much story can we get into every frame. So it's really fun. Yeah.
What's the collaboration like with you and, say, Anna for that episode? Like, who picks the angles? Who picks the lighting? Like, is it a team effort, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's especially on that show, they have two cinematographers. So the director actually gets to prep the whole time, which is rare in TV. Usually you grab a lunch with the cinematographer and they're exhausted, and you just try to get a few ideas in front of them. So we got to bond and play and pull references for each other and talk about strategies for what we were filming. We had a high page count and a really short amount of time, so that was the other challenge. Where do we spend the money, and where do we keep it moving and keep it sparse? So it was a really great collaboration, and the writers too were with us for any questions, and certainly all through the production. I feel like the little town the actors really bonded together as people outside of their characters too. So that's always fun.
Yeah. So little time, and such in a rush. Yeah.
Normally. Yeah.
We got to speak to many of the actors from this episode, and all of them said it was a very fun set and they had an amazing time, and they all were very complimentary of you. Thank you. That's so nice to hear. I feel like what we do is mostly process. You spend 80% of your time making the thing, and then it goes by, like in a bip. And so I've made a promise to myself, if I wasn't going to enjoy the process, then I should do another job. So I just feel like everything on set is part of what goes into the show, and it should be the goals should be close together, and I really love overthinking everything. I love character backstory, and I love collaborating with actors, and just, there's no small moments. Everything should feel it's got a purpose, and the characters are invested. And for comedy, I think the stakes should be even higher. So it was really fun, and they were generous actors. So it was easy to do, for sure. How is it different directing television from directing a feature?
The collaboration is much more weighted towards the writer and the showrunner. So in a feature, the director is pretty much on the hook for making main decisions. They do it in collaboration with the studio as well and producers. But in TV, the writer and show creator hold the big picture, and I come in and I'm like a very fancy nanny for the episodes that they have. And like my job is to make sure I'm thinking of things that maybe they didn't have time to think of, and try to bring my own lens to certain things, but let it be part of the show. Make sure that it's not, that I'm in service to the project. And I think it's great because it teaches me to I get to explore other genres. I get to live in other worlds that I wouldn't necessarily build myself. And then I get to bring that practice to my films, by stretching in different directions creatively. And it's just fast. You gotta keep your pace up. Yeah.
Would you do another Quantum Leap if they offered it to you?
Oh, totally. It was a really wonderful team. I mean, from the top down, really, Martin and, just Ben and Derek, the writers. It was just and Anna, such a great team. And I love that they had a philosophy of, to not do any harm. Like even the horses, they didn't want to do this certain stunt that is like a really stressful thing for horses to do, especially in a heat wave. And I just love that. I thought that was just such a great philosophy to do, especially in an industry that's not been known for being super kind to people or animals for the most part. So yeah, definitely.
Kindness to the people involved.
And the cast,
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was
Ray,
that like? The long hours with that cast and Ray and Caitlin?
Oh, Ray and Caitlin. I mean, the whole team. I was sad I didn't get to work with all the rest of the headquarter team as much as, but they were so delightful, and they were bonding with each other. It was like episode 5, everybody's kind of gelling. And Ray and Caitlin, their chemistry is amazing and really, really fun. Just they had great sense of humor, and even though it was just hot as hell and long hours, they're pretty badass. They were just really a delight. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we spoke to Eddie Park, I think his name is, he was telling us so many fun stories. Do you have any fun stories from the set?
God, we have, I guess this isn't necessarily a fun story, but we were really running behind, and it was downpour raining, and we were supposed to film outside. And so we just designed this kind of shot that Caitlin, because her character is not seen. And so she was like, instead of standing next to Ray, why don't I move? And I was like, oh yeah, you can be anywhere. Then she can be talking about the characters behind them, looking and pointing and saying to him, like, this person can build an explosive, this person can do that. And then they are looking at each other, and that longing for each other plays, and just a more dynamic frame. And we kind of filmed it almost in a wonder with the rain in the background. Was really just like a fun discovery that we did as a group. It was really like we added a little improv, and I think those are rare finds in TV where you have a little room to play around. And so yeah, that was a fun collaboration, and to have Caitlin's character be able to have a different way of interacting with Ray was fun.
What was it like to be the director, to get to, I guess, direct the scene where a lot of us fans find out a big important story beat of the arc of the season with this Leaper X? And how did you direct that scene without giving us too much information? Because we don't want to know before we find out other things. But what was it like on the day?
I mean, honestly, Martin, that's really I have to tip my hat to him, because he's holding the bigger picture, and the writers, and Derek and Benjamin, because they are holding the piece. I think I had a number of ways. I had a contra zoom planned, which ultimately didn't serve the scene. So that's, I talked about it ahead of time, and it's, I always encourage trying things out that might not work if we have all the other things. And so, so that was one that I tried out, and it ended up really just being this way of capturing the surprise, breaking the moment between them. But, really the blocking and everything, I think that ended up being one that was super collaborative. And I would just hats off to Martin, because he's holding the big picture and knows exactly what that moment needs. And that's a big, big moment. And so, for the actors and we were still floundering without knowing what those future moments were. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting. It was like a mystery for us as well. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I know we talked about Quantum Leap, and we talked about A Kid Named Jake, and we talked about Darby and the Dead. Is there any other work that you would really want fans of yours to check out? In addition to those, of course.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things that I love that I've made, and I mean, I think the biggest amount of work that I've done on shows lately is Dickinson, which is an Apple TV show about Emily Dickinson, but it's got a very contemporary twist. I worked on all 3 seasons, and the last season set in the Civil War, and it's a half-hour period comedy, but it deals with really heavy, subjects and beautiful poetry. And I don't know, it's a very unique show that I was really involved in, and it's worth a check out. Yeah, for sure. It's a very odd tone, though.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. I'll check that out. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I really learned a lot, and I appreciated talking to you. And I think we have a commentary to record. How's that sound?
Perfect. Thank you. It was really a pleasure. I loved the feedback that you had. Thank you.
This is Marquise Vilson, and you are listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow. I'm Albie, and as with me always is Haberdashery.
Hayden.
My name is Hayden. All right.
Okay.
Try not to get it wrong this time, Alabaster.
Okay. Oh, and we have a very special guest panelist on this episode. We have Chris Baldwin. Hi, welcome, Chris. How you doing?
I'm peachy. I'm good. Doing good. It's
I'm glad we're finally able to get you on. It's been a while, but it finally worked out for this episode. Leap.Die.Repeat. We're talking about Leap.Die.Repeat today. I want to start with Chris, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the time loops, and we'll get to the whole story in a bit. But I want to focus on in the beginning of the show. I want to focus on the headquarters people and all the things taking place at the headquarters. For me, when the new Quantum Leap started, I was really put off by all the headquarters stuff because I'm used to the original Quantum Leap where you hardly ever seen anything to do with the headquarters. But
right, and I like the headquarters just because it's so big, and I mean, even like if you're a fan and you want to make like an episode yourself, or a fan like shoot something great out of it, you can. It's so big, you can go anywhere in headquarters and stuff. But of all the lights, I like how they have Ziggy so much bigger than the original. I do. Just because you kind of saw this little globe up there of Ziggy, and it's just like, it's good. But, I also
that might have just been the control panel, though, that we saw in the Leap Back. It could be that way back further in the project, they did have all the supercomputer elements. So I still think that somewhere out there in the project itself, we do have to have the orb and the Lego, the massive Lego setup somewhere.
I'm hoping. Yeah, Ziggy, in this version of Ziggy, the updated version or the newest version, our current version, 2023 version, Ziggy still takes up a whole pretty huge room. And with the what is it, Moore's law of the shrinking of technology over time, did I get that right? And so the computer technology is so small now. So to have that many huge computer units, Ziggy has to be on the level or even more than the IBM Watson that played Jeopardy. I don't know if you know this, but me and my daughter watch Jeopardy, and we just love it every night because she's so smart, knows so many things. It's amazing at 10 to be that smart. We have little clickers and we play a game. And Watson was, I guess, 10 years ago now? I don't know. I don't know time. But then add on the government funding to buy all the computer equipment you need. And even who knows if they have quantum computing by now. So Ziggy has to be like the best computer in the world, probably.
Yeah, most likely. I still think that the big bad we're going to find out at the end of the series actually is Ziggy. Ziggy's somehow being hacked or being controlled remotely by the government. And I really am hoping we get to hear evil Deborah.
So do I. I want them. That's one thing about. I love this Quantum Leap, but that's one thing. One thing that they're really forgetting is give Deborah Pratt a voice. She's original Ziggy, right? Why not still have her as the same Ziggy? You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
her voice is still as amazing, and she still looks amazing. So even if they had, like I mentioned another episode, if they had a hologram of her, she would be perfect for it.
Yeah. Speaking of what's going on at the project, does anyone else think that? Well, they did end up saying that the loop that they called it actually was 5 pre-programmed leaps. Does anyone think that this might have been deliberately put in there so that they actually would need Janice? Do you think that this was the way that Ben and Janice, when they were putting their plans in motion, would end up ensuring that Janice would end up on the project and end up being a really valuable source for them, and hopefully get them to see the error of their ways to put Janice on the team?
you know, Hayden, I think so. I think that they were gonna figure they needed Janice down the road, and that's why they did that. Honestly, I mean, because who else knows Ziggy better than the crew that's in there with Quantum Leap right now? I mean, is Janice. Janice knows outs about Ziggy, in outs, and I mean, Al had to teach her the basics of Ziggy, programming Ziggy, everything, you know? So why not? That's a perfect plot, is to bring in Janice.
Yeah. And yeah, if Ben and Janice originally planned this particular, 5 leaps, especially knowing that Janice was the expert on time loops, it would show that they really have put a lot of thought into what's going on. And the fact that they have had to put so much effort into getting Ben out there leaping instead of Addison, it does add to the stakes of why he had to do it and had to act in secret and do it so quickly. So I really do hope that we find out all the plans that they did have to put in motion just to stop whatever cataclysm is going to be coming. So I'm seeing little nuggets. I hope that they do turn out to be gold.
What about you, Albie? What do you think?
Well, Harry has a point. And I didn't think about this.
It's Hayden, by the way.
Oh, sorry, Hayden. I didn't think about this.
It's all right, algorithm. Now. I forgive you.
I didn't think about it until you said it just now. But if Janice did plan on getting caught to get to the project, and that plan didn't work out, this is a good contingency plan that they had from the beginning. Because, as I mentioned in this episode, there's one person that wrote a PhD paper on time loops specifically, and they would have had to call Janice into the project either way. So that's a great catch, Hayden. Hayden, right?
Yeah, you got it right, cool. Algorithm. Well done.
I want to give a lot of credit to the writers' room, because I think they're putting in the work to lay out all these things, and there's probably things they put in there that we're still missing that we won't know until we see the whole first season, and then we'll go back and watch again and see what they did put in there that we're not even catching. But little things like that, I think, are on purpose. That's a good catch. That's a good catch, Harry.
Yeah, and apparently Janice is going to give the name of the person that informed them of what had to happen. What's the bet that it's Sam?
Ooh, Sam, that could be it. I mean, that would be exciting. I don't see it coming right away, but that's definitely one of my thoughts that went to it. But who could it be? Who could this name be?
Unless it's a Leah or someone like that. It's some other leaper that's out there.
If you think about it, back in the original, right, with Sam, there was when Sam had to explain it to, like, when he was in a leap of the secret of Quantum Leap, like for instance, there's an episode where he leaps into an ex-con or a murderer, right? and I think you know what episode that I'm talking about. And this leaper had to, well, he escaped the waiting room, and basically Al had to go after. His name was Styles, and since Styles escaped the waiting room, well, what do you think that, you know, it could be somebody of a ex-Sleepy that we don't know from the original that could be going in, and you know, that can have some connection to it, you know, just like how Magic looked up like Quantum Leap because Sam leaped into him the first time, right? Well, you know,
So
what if they're
possibly-
doing that once again?
So you're
Possibly
saying that
someone
someone who Sam or another leaper had leapt into might have gained some memories of their time, might have figured things out and decided to do some stuff on their own. Yeah, I could see that happening. I think we've got a Quantum Leap crew member who wrote a book like that, didn't we?
Christopher D. Philippus, yeah. So I think they might be using his novel as a little bit of a reference guide moving forward.
Right,
I
because
think
you
it's
know,
royalties.
right, because you know that episode where Sam leaped into Styles, right? Well, go back and he told the woman that he was, her and her daughter, that who he really was. She was going to be going to nursing school. Sam tested her on all. I mean, no, she tested Sam on all the questions that he had. Styles was illiterate, so what if it's somebody from that era coming into this era to see? Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
well,
though they
and
don't
don't
need
forget
to-
too, that's not the only artifacts that Sam left in the past. He left a hand link in the Leap Back. He left that in 1945 when he was kidnapped and drugged with the sodium pentothal. He spilled all the information about Quantum Leap and who he was. The government has that on record somewhere. So it's quite possible that, you know, it could end up being some rogue out there who has figured out what's going on through Sam being in the past. And yeah, I could totally see that happening.
That is a good point, Hunter.
In fact, that could even be where some of the origins of the evil leapers come from, because, you know, Starlight Star Bright, which is where he spilled everything under the truth serum, the very next episode is Deliver Us from Evil, the first time we see the evil leapers. So who's to say that's not what caused it?
And if you remember in Starlight Star Bright, besides the information about Quantum Leap, Sam was giving the government like his social security number, his birthday. He gave his parents' name away. So if you go back and add all those elements into one, you never know, you know?
Yeah, Chris and you, Hunter, you have a good point. And even though they don't have to...
It's Hayden, by the way.
Hayden, sorry. Even if...
it's okay, Alphabet, I forgive you.
Yeah, Alphabet Rap. Even if they don't reference more to the original series, I think it'd be a great thing if they did eventually, because we've gotten like name drops of Sam and Al, and they talk about him here and there, especially the first repilot. But it's just not as much of the history that as I thought would be incorporated in the new series is actually being incorporated, you know. So that would be great to see, and hopefully the writers' room runs out of ideas at some point, maybe season 3.5, and they're like, okay, let's watch the original series again and see what we can do to bring some of that back and tie up some of those storylines and stuff like that. I know it's a little unusual to go in the first segment, but I heard, Chris, you have a really cool leap and look that you can show us. Do you have anything Quantum Leapy around that you can show us?
My shirt, and
that's a very cool shirt.
Sorry, can you go back up to the camera, because I didn't get to see it very well. Oh, that is cool.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
And I have my DVDs somewhere around here, but I can't find them.
Yeah.
DVDs.
I've got something sort of time travel related on as well. What I've got here, let's see if I can get far enough back. Can you see that?
Doctor Who, Mario looking at
it's a
old
TARDIS,
Mario.
yeah. But it's got a newer Mario who's meeting up with the 8-bit Mario, the original one.
That is nice. So cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So is that Dr. Mario? Remember that
No,
game?
but that would make perfect sense, though.
That would. That would.
Yeah. So it feels like we seem to be in agreement based on everything that we've seen just from the project side of things, that we all seem to really like this episode. Is there anything that either of you didn't like?
Chris?
I don't like that. Like there's no Ziggy voice yet, and I think Deborah Pratt needs to come into her voice needs to start coming in episodes. Maybe they're waiting for that down the road and stuff. But I mean, I gotta ask you guys the same thing. What didn't you like about this episode? I mean, what didn't you like?
I would agree with you, Chris. We do need more Deborah Pratt, but I think everything needs more Deborah Pratt. I was very happy that they did include her voiceover in the Saga Cell, I guess, in the first episode. So that was nice, just to start the series off with her voice. That made me feel all warm and happy inside. But it'd be cool if they do finally reveal Ziggy's voice, and maybe in the last bit of the last episode of the season, then that would give us, like, all us classic fans, we can't wait to tune back in for season 2. The only thing I didn't like about this episode is a classic thing that happens in so many television shows, and it's a little thing, but it always bothers me. When Ian brings coffee to Janice in the paper coffee cups, the cups are so obviously empty. And in so many TV shows, I'm into it, and then people are walking around with empty coffee cups. And there's a difference between something that's empty and then something that has weight to it, So even a couple of beanbags in a paper coffee cup would make
You've
the difference.
got great technique, by the way, Albie.
Oh, thank you. A lot of practice. I've been very lonely for a long time. So, but the empty coffee cups, why does no one else see this but me? It just takes me right out of the episode, and I go, oh, they're in a studio. These are actors. I'm watching a TV show. I'm out of the story. It just breaks the illusion wholeheartedly. Why empty coffee cups? That bothers me. Please put beanbags in the coffee cups. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Albie. I agree with you. I see the same thing because, you can totally tell on camera, realistic, not realistic. And if a coffee, especially if a coffee if you have a cup with coffee in it, you can kind of you could see through this can, right? Well, if you were able to see through this can, you would be able to tell that there's that there's a drink in it, and you could kind of hear the liquid, but you can't on these episodes, like when every time Ian brings in coffee at all, even to Addison, of all things, you could totally tell that, it's just like, yeah.
Well, could there be a technical reason why they can't have the coffee? Because
I know
I'm wondering, is it possible that the steam that's coming out of the coffee cups, could that have some issue with the cameras? Could it fog things up? Could it get into the cameras and hurt them? Something like that. I don't know.
I remember hearing
that's
a story.
Reason why it might happen.
I remember hearing a story of a photo shoot that had boiling water in the coffee cups outside in the cold, so it would create steam, and it ended up burning the person being photographed, and there was a big lawsuit. So that might be part of it. But you don't have to have anything hot in there or even anything liquid, just something with an appropriate weight that would show the effect of compressed space-time closer to Earth, and the two masses being pulled towards each other, other than just an empty cup. I keep doing this. I'm sorry. But you know what's great about the only thing I didn't like about this episode is empty coffee cups, is that everything else was amazing, and even that scene was amazing. I love Janice at the project. Let's talk about Janice at the project. She's really becoming part of the team slowly, but I think we're going to get to a point where Janice is part of Quantum Leap.
Well, I do like how Magic is saying it was her birthright that she was supposed to be here. Maybe we've got to try and fix that mistake. Someone actually on the Facebook group asked, do you think that there's going to be a leap somewhere along the way where Ben as someone who's high up, convinces Magic actually to have Janice on the crew so that they don't have that mistake at the beginning. But I had to say, I don't think that would happen, because wouldn't that cause a paradox? If Ben needed Janice's help to be able to leap in place of Addison and do it quickly so they can stop this cataclysm, if Janice was originally on the team, then he wouldn't be able to trust her either, and he wouldn't be able to make that initial leap. So, yeah, it's a nice thought, but I don't think it would ever be able to happen for that reason.
Well, in the Quantum Leap world, Hayden, you never know what's going to happen. We really don't know. We're blown away by surprises already, you know?
Yeah.
And I think within the Quantum Leap space-time that, you know, I'm still waiting for them to bring back the original handling, well, the gummy bear handling, you know? I can't wait to see that if they do. I mean,
I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful.
I
did
hope
see
so.
one in the first 2 or 3 episodes, didn't we? Because Janice,
the faded stunt prop handling. Yeah. But Deborah
hopefully
has
we'll get to see a
real
proper
prop
one from
now.
Replica Props.
Yeah, that would be a real bootstrap paradox. So they could show it, but I think they would have to undo it by the end. But another thing, talking about Magic, I really enjoyed Magic scenes in this episode and the headquarters episodes altogether. But the scenes I really liked as well was towards the end with Magic and Jen. And I'm getting what I asked for a little bit ago, which was #more Jen, just because I love Narissa Lee and her portrayal of Jen. And we're getting to see more of Jen. And that really made me happy in this episode. I just love Jen. So what do you think about those scenes?
Jen is awesome. I like Jen. Jen is Jen. No, I can't say that. Jen is great. I mean, Jen brings something to the team, I think. So, yeah.
I love how she's tough and yet shows her vulnerability and not afraid to show her emotions as she's being tough. It's a complex character for the beginning of a series, and I think she's nailing it every time. Harriet, what do you think about Jen in this episode?
It's Hayden, by the way.
Hayden, sorry.
It's all right, Alzheimer's. I forgive you.
Yep. I have sometimes, yes.
Yeah. Look, all the scenes at the project were really good. There's not really much extra I can say other than I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing. I suppose it's a good thing when you've got nothing negative to say for once. I don't have to go Hayden on them. That's Karen Hayden, by the way.
Yeah, don't be a Karen Hayden.
Yeah. So yeah, look, I don't really have much more to add about the project scenes, but I'm liking what they're doing, and I'm liking the slow reveal of the mystery. And I think that, it's a good slow burn, actually. We're starting to really feel for how everyone fits into the project and how everyone is going to be of use somewhere down the track.
Thank you, Hank. But going back to the Jen and Magic scene, when they were talking about to each other about, well, this is what happens, and Magic was saying, well, a part of me wishes that I included Janice in the first place and not listened to Beth about keeping her from her birthright. And then he said something to the effect of, too bad we can't change it. And I was like, oh my goodness, they're like setting up maybe a future storyline where either Jen or Magic goes back and changes that, and having Janice part of the Project Quantum Leap the whole time. Because as we've seen, the timeline changes all the time outside the Leaper's chamber,
the
there.
Bubble of the project,
yeah, the bubble, wherever the bubble is in this project. So it would be interesting if something happened, and even off camera, and the episode just starts and Janice has been a part of the project the whole time. But I found that interesting, and I was wondering, is Jen giving Magic that idea? Is Magic giving Jen that idea? Is he kind of saying, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, this is what you need to do without me telling you to do it? I don't know. But I just found that part intriguing and interesting.
Or maybe they're leading up to somewhere where you never know, a cameo could show up of like Sam you know,
Mhm.
for
One day.
in case they're trying. I think so. One day, when you never know, because getting Scott Bakula back is harder than it is, you know.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
mhm.
Well, it does seem like they're setting up little seeds so that they can clean up their messes as they do go. And speaking of messes being cleaned up, don't we have an interview from the janitor?
Yeah, we actually in this episode we have this one interview. We it's a great interview. If we were only going to have one interview, it's a great interview to have. It's with Mike Wade, who plays the janitor Moe Murphy, and I want to go to that interview.
Mo.
Hey, it's Matt and Albie here from the Quantum Leap podcast. The strangest thing just happened. We just finished our Joe Dinicol interview. We were both hit in the face with a nuclear explosion, and suddenly we found ourselves back here. But this time, we're with Mike Wade, alias Moe Murphy, from the episode Leap.Die.Repeat. Mike, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Mike played Moe, the janitor, who the character that solved everything, albeit with some of Ray Lee's help. So we're really looking forward to talking about your experience on the show.
Yeah.
But first, could you let us know a little bit about your history? How did you get into acting? You've got a really impressive resume. We've been looking through your IMDb, and you seem to have been in everything. So
Thank you.
Yeah, let us know a bit about where you started.
So I'll give you a little nutshell for me, man. So I'm from LA originally, and I've always wanted to act. I just, didn't get the courage to do so till way later. I studied psychology in college. Got to my senior year. A buddy of mine said, "Hey, man, let's take these 2 acting classes. Will be an easy A." And I was like, "I don't want to be around actors. Actors are weird, man." And so, but what I came to learn was actors aren't weird. I just was someone who didn't express myself, and once I got into the classes, I just fell in love with it. And that childhood dream, came back again, because I I pretty much put it out of my mind. I thought I had to be practical and, just do something else. It never really entered my mind that I could actually do this. So, one of my instructors said, "Hey, you should give this a shot." And it was all I needed to hear. So I just slowly but surely started taking my steps to get into the industry. I graduated with my degree in psychology. Didn't know anybody in the business, so just, started making my way. And as I took that first step, new doors started opening up, and, now I'm here talking to you guys.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you think the that diversion into psychology helped you in any way preparing for acting, like getting inside people's minds?
Yeah, I think it definitely did. I think that was probably my way of coming as close to doing what I really wanted to do, because I love people. I love understanding people. And through that, I get to understand myself. And so it was like, actually, I feel like it worked pretty great for me.
So yeah, awesome that you could take that diversion and still find yourself back where you dreamed of being as a child, but actually it all kind of came together.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about a couple of your earliest roles then, and your start on the screen.
Oh man,
or on stage.
Earliest stuff. I started off doing student stuff, indie stuff. I started off actually, doing, background, and I happened to be on set one day with this actor named Bokeem Woodbine, and I was background. He was like playing the guitar, and I don't know if I would do this later, but I didn't know not to do it. So I just walked over to him and said, "Hey man, trying to get started in this business, I want to take these classes and things like that." And he said, "Well, yeah, it's great, man. You take your classes, definitely. But, you want to start working acting, you could actually do that right now." It was called Backstage West at the time. Now it's just Backstage, and it's, online. And he said, "Yeah, start submitting for roles." So I did that. I worked with photographers. It was time for print or CD to get headshots and things like that, and just slowly started making my way through things. So doing indie stuff, went, to acting school, graduated from a 2-year school, studied Meisner. And yeah, one of my first, actually how I got into the union was a film called From Above, and just so happened to be starring Danny Glover, Graham Greene, a lot of, veteran actors. And that's how I got into SAG before the two unions merged. And yeah.
Intimidating working with big actors like that so early on?
It's funny. I remember my manager called me, Joanne. She's like, "Oh, Mike, you got the part of it." And she's so happy. And she's going through all the deal points. And rookie me, I said, "Oh, Joanne, I don't know if I should hear these things right now because I want to be focused on the role." I'm sure she's thinking, who this kid thinks he is, But yeah, I was very excited, to say the least. But because of the school that I went to, I really felt prepared to at least come at this. And obviously with great direction, directors get the performance out of you that they need. But I felt like I went to a great school that really prepares you to work and to continue to work. But yeah, it was literally a dream come true. Joined the union through Taft-Hartley. I'm from California, so they flew me to Texas to shoot. Taught me a little bit how to ride a horse. Got to travel a little bit with the film for film festivals. Obviously met Danny Glover, Graham Greene, and worked with some great actors and actresses, and still friends with the writer of that film, James Bird. It's like literally a dream come true.
That's a big way to start.
Yeah. It was. You
can tell your parents you're working with Danny. We working with him, and it's crazy.
They were pretty excited about that.
I wanted to ask about another role you did that involved NBC and time travel.
Oh, right.
And you got to work with Malcolm Barrett in a really a good episode of Timeless.
The
assassination of Abraham Lincoln. I was just rewatching that. Yeah. And you're really good in that. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I'm really interested in that show as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. That was my first TV role, really. I can tell the story about the audition. So this is obviously before COVID. I'm pacing in the hallways like I kind of typically do. One of my coaches says, "Hey, you should, do the lines on your feet." Because, when you get in that audition room, those nerves can hit you, you know what I mean? So you want to just have it really in you. But I was feeling a little bit nervous. And for some reason, I was just thinking, okay, well, you worked on this, you rehearsed it, you got this. And in my head, it's like, you do this because you love it. So just go in there and have fun. Even though it was a dramatic, role, it was a man who was looking for his family. But, I still went in there, had fun with it. I think I maybe did 1 or 2 takes, and that was my only call for it. Mm-hmm. And next thing I know, my agent called me, "Hey, you got the part." So I was just really happy about that. And the way that works, so that shot in Vancouver. So they looked at, actors in Vancouver. Nothing worked out. So I got to go up there and play that part. So, and I actually ran into some friends out there too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What was the feeling like on that set? Because it was the show was just starting at that time. I think they had a couple seasons altogether, but they were just starting out.
Yeah, I think that was like the 2nd episode. So, it was a lot of fun, man. I get to, that was my 2nd time in Canada. But yeah, to get to travel, meet this, this beautiful cast of people who are just so excited about telling these stories, and working with Malcolm he's just a hilarious dude. So that was a lot of fun. I played Nicholas Biddle, who was actually a real person.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the first person.
Oh, was he based on a real person?
Yeah. Nicholas Biddle
was
a real person, and first person to shed blood in the Civil War. It wasn't, he didn't get shot or anything. It was somebody hit him, I think, with a brick or something. And yeah, it was just an honor to play that part, that historic part, just to bring that to to life. So.
Being early on in your career, were you like reading Civil War history on the way up to filming or anything?
No,
like trying to prepare for the role.
Just, looking up things at the time, a little bit about Mr. Biddle, things like that. But yeah, I feel like a lot of it was on the page. We're always taught to make things personal, and I just a big part of it is me imagining that I'm, on one hand, it's ecstatic because the war is over, and the horrors of that are are over. You're now beginning to experience freedom, but you also have your wife and your children that you're looking for, and so any human being would obviously take that very seriously and connect to that. So it was just a really great. It was a fun part to play, but also I felt very grounded in the stakes.
You and Malcolm together in that scene was just so great. Such to have a good scene partner, and that scene really made the whole episode, I think, because it gets you in that mindset of the stakes of everything that's happening.
Yeah, and that's
in that story.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, so which was another fun thing to do, is just that when that turn happens, and he's what was it? He was saying something that my character said, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. And then so me that
the wrong regimen or something.
Yeah, and I asked him that question, where'd you fight? And he just let into him because he's pretending to have experienced what any of these guys have experienced, and like I said, the horrors of war and it's things that really nobody should see. But yeah, so it was a fun role to play because it had levels to it. And then we end up being friends because he stepped up in later situations.
So how do you get from that NBC time travel show all the way to this NBC time travel show? You had so many roles in between, but like in so many TV shows and different things. So tell us a little bit about the journey from one to the other.
Man, the name of the game is auditioning. And thankfully, I've got a great agent, got a great manager, and I'm able to get some really, really great opportunities. And somewhere along the line, I was able to switch how I view auditioning, because when we get that email notification, actually, I don't even call them audition, I call them appointments. That's what my reps call them. It doesn't say audition, it says appointment this time. Now it's tapes, but I just began to enjoy the process of it, of auditioning. One of my coaches said, see this as your opportunity to play the role. Like you're not auditioning, you're going in there for however many minutes and you're doing it, have fun with it. That's it, So Jennifer Cooper, I'd been in her office a bunch of times before the pandemic, and she sent me a few things. I've been sent a few things from her office over the years, and actually for Quantum Leap, a couple of roles too. And this is the one.
Oh wow!
On. Yeah. So that's
very cool. You got a good episode though, so that's good.
It's totally different than any of the other episodes. So I was very happy to be part of this one.
So you got the part.
Yeah.
And how long in between getting the part and being on set and mopping up that soda that's spilled that changes timelines? It's crazy.
Like, what kind of messy person is going to leave a soda in the crap?
Right? Who would do that?
Hey, I think maybe
some kind of psychopath.
I think maybe I did it. It's like job security. It's too clean. They gotta need me. So
yeah.
Some things got to get knocked over. I feel like it was, I don't know, maybe about a couple weeks or so, because, you get the part, you get COVID tested. As long as that's all good, then, you go wardrobe fittings and not too much for me, just that jumpsuit. Yes, maybe a couple of weeks. And I remember it was around Halloween, so I mean I don't do too much around that time anyway, but I just kind of just hanging out at home, you know.
Did you spend a lot of that couple of weeks trying to get your head around the logistics of the script, or are you one of those actors that just goes in and says, like, I'm going to focus on the character and the complexity of this is just not important?
No, I definitely recognize that this was going to be something complex. I definitely read the script quite a few times, breaking down different things, you know, which you kind of just naturally do when you have the time for it. And yeah, like I said, when I met everyone, I really felt like, you know, we're in good hands here. Because yeah, I mean, you have to get this right. You know, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Mm.
Once I got the part and was able to meet Pamela, the director, and people in the art department, and we're taking photos for the obituaries and all that stuff, I really got the sense that they had it handled. Because yeah, when, you know, you read the script and you see that you're doing these same things over and over and over again, you really got to get it right, or you know, it's not going to, you know, gel together. So
does that make it more difficult having to repeat the same thing over and over again, almost exactly, like more so than just like when you're redoing a scene for a different camera angle or something, but just knowing it's in a different time loop?
Yeah,
I don't know. That's a unique situation, maybe.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's our job, right? You know, when you're doing film and TV, you're gonna do stuff over and over. You know, however many takes the director needs, right? Or lighting needs or sound needs. But with this, yeah, you really feel like it's Groundhog Day. It's like, I'm pushing this mop again, you know. But at the same time, I knew once again that we're in capable hands. I knew that we were doing something really exciting that's going to come out great. So that, you know, it's kind of just all part of the job.
Did it affect your performance at all? Because I think anyone who's watched anything like this before is going to spot the janitor immediately and think, hang on, this is a whole load of high up military people and a journalist, and there's a janitor there who seems to be taking focus. He's going to be key to something. Did you do anything with that to kind of blend into the background, but also make sure that, hey, I'm going to be an important part of this story?
I was focusing on, as an actor, yeah. But my focus was just on how does Moe see life? How does Moe see working here? And you can see, you know, Moe's whistling to elevator music. So I think that he likes his job, you know, and so for me to just focus on that helped me not to, you know, I guess give anything away too early. But yeah, that helped me a lot. The song, yeah, I actually liked it too.
That definitely helps.
Yeah.
Now, we asked Joe when we spoke to him earlier about acting, knowing that he had done it. But what, on the other side of it, when you're acting, when you know you didn't do it, but you might want the audience to think that possibly you are one of the people that could have done it, is that an entirely different acting challenge? To be a little suspicious and yet innocent at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I remember watching that as well. To play that, yeah, I mean, it was once again just, being Moe at that time, because you don't want to be in the back with like an eyebrow raise, like, is it me or no? You just kind of you stay in that moment and once again see the world through your character's eyes. But yeah, it's kind of it's a balance. Yeah, you don't want to tip it either way, because like they said, either any of us could have done it. Yeah. So
was Ray working with everyone during this shoot? Because he has to leap into each one of you at a different part of the episode. Was he like trying to like learn from you mannerisms or different things so he could kind of like be your character as well as you were?
I think he just he was just observing us, and I remember he did ask me, what part of the song are you going to be whistling and things like that. So that really let me know that he's into the finer details. And so I think he played a pretty good Moe. Pretty good me. Okay.
What was it like watching your episode on television?
Man, it's always exciting. It's always exciting, and I always make sure I stay connected to that feeling, even though I still consider myself to be pretty new. Stay connected to that feeling of like, I'm on TV right now. It's like because you could do this so long that you get jaded, and it's like it's just some other thing. But it's like, no, look at what I get to do, and thankfully, in these recent years, I've been able to make a living at it, So just being grateful for what I get to do, that it's going well. Yes, it's exciting. When I see myself on TV, it's a little bit different. Some friends have asked me that, like if it's weird to me. Maybe kind of it is, but it's like I know that it's me, but I don't know. Somehow it's different. I don't know. Maybe in my mind, I think I look different, so maybe that's what helps. So I try to just enjoy the work, but also say, okay, the things that I worked on in rehearsal, did that show up? Am I happy with what I did? So once I get another go at it on a different project, see what I can learn. On this set, once again, I'm pretty sure I was the new guy. I listened to watched Joe's interview yesterday. He's been on it for 30 years, he said.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's
crazy.
surprised
He
us.
doesn't look that old.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So I have not been doing it that long. So for me, especially recently with the jobs that I've been working on, I've been working on with people who've done this for so long. So not only do I get to work with them, I get to observe and see how they do things. It's always some opportunity for me to learn and pick up some new things. Raymond, Caitlin, Heidi, Joseph, everybody. Mr. Picardo, they've been doing it so much longer than me. So,
what's Robert Picardo really like?
Oh man, that guy. No, he's really cool. He's a really cool guy. I don't know, was he telling us funny stories? He just got so much experience in this business. And he's such a pro, and you can tell that he's just really comfortable, to get to that level. Who comes to mind for me is I work with an actor named Ben Daniels. And so Ben is another hilarious person. He'll have you dying laughing before the camera rolls. And all right. And so now you're trying not to laugh. And he's just there. And you do things so long, you're just great at it, So that was same way with working with him. Yeah, that's what that makes me think of.
I just wanted to make the observation. You said a couple of times like you were the new kid on set and things like that. But from everything you said, you strike me as the kind of person that you could be in this business for another 20, 30 years and you will still be saying, I'm observing this person, I'm watching this person, I'm learning. You seem like one of those people that's focused on constantly evolving. Is that fair?
Yeah. Definitely. I think there's always room to grow. There's always gonna be room to grow. So once you think you got it, and that's when your work isn't maybe going to be authentic or full of life. You want to know that there's always something to learn. If you get another shot at it a couple years later, maybe you could have did it better. And, that's not a bad thing. I think that's actually a beautiful thing, and one of my, I think in one of my, a bio, I said that, my aim is to perfect my craft. There is no such thing as perfect, but it's something for me to chase. And it's something that's going to make sure that I never just kind of rest on my laurels like, oh yeah, I did this. Nah, keep in pursuit of it. To me, it keeps it alive and exciting. It's fun. And also it kind of takes some pressure off because you're never going to be perfect, but you're also still going after it with joy and love. So.
What was your feeling on this episode, like the direction and the production team on how the block shooting went? And was that like stressful or fun or a little bit of both because of just the repetitive nature of the whole thing?
Yeah, well, once again, I really felt that we were in great hands, but I also saw that they were making sure everything was right, just with themselves and even us, continuity, obviously it's important. And it was really important for us to know when we did things, I picked up the can and then I did what, so because if it's off anywhere, it kind of could throw the whole thing off, I don't know if I would say it was too much stress, but they were definitely focused on it. So, yeah.
Okay. And did you get to keep your name badge?
Oh man, I should have asked for it. I didn't think.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
No, they just gave you the mop, right?
Yeah,
they said you can take the mop home.
The mop home.
Soda can.
that loud bucket. That bucket caused us some stuff, man.
Was it loud?
Yeah, I mean, because it's a metal bucket and you're going down this hallway.
Mm-hmm.
But I always tip my hat to the crew because I'm always amazed at how they're able to put these fires out. Like, oh, this thing broke or this happened. This, they find ways to fix things. And this is another fantastic crew that I work with on this. Yeah. Even though they didn't give me the name badge.
Oh, well, thanks. There's so many cool memories from the show. Thank you for sharing them with us. Can you tell us anything you've got in the pipeline, anything coming up that the Leapers can look out for you in?
Well, yeah. So lately I've been recurring on a show called SEAL Team, which was literally another dream of mine to be on the show and to be in this type of role. So, been recurring for a few seasons. They just got renewed for season 7. I'll work with them as long as they'll have me. So, you guys can check out the previous episodes on Paramount Plus, and hopefully you'll be seeing Lieutenant Soto in season 7.
Mike, thank you again for your time. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
This is Anna Mortegui, and you're listening to the Quantum Leap podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow. I'm Albie, and as with me always is H.
Hayden.
Yeah, Hayden. Thank you. Hayden, and we have a special guest panelist this week, Chris Baldwin of YouTube fame. I'm sure you've seen him on YouTube talking about Quantum Leap and so many other cool subjects and the interviews he does. I'm very happy to have you on, and I'm glad our schedules finally synced up. It's great to have you, Chris. So this week, I got to say, we don't have any interviews, so it might be a shorter show than normal. But we got a lot to talk about, so let's
I've got to get off to the concert soon too.
Yeah, you're heading off. Harry's going to be on special assignment. He's going to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Where is that? You got to fly there?
It was in Queensland, and it's Hayden, by the way.
Hayden, sorry.
Yeah.
Queensland, is that far from Sydney?
Well, I'm in Melbourne. Yes,
Melbourne.
But yes, it's.
I know there's a bridge and an opera house.
It would be like if you were going from, say, Texas up to the border of Canada, something like that.
Okay.
It's about that distance.
So quite a bit. You couldn't ride your bike there.
Okay. No, not unless I was much, much fitter.
Well, you'd be fit by the time you got there. All right. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's we don't really have time for first impressions, but let's just do overall impressions. What are your major thoughts of this episode, Chris?
I like it, and all the props that they had. I liked the set they were on. Very awesome. Just because when they use a show like this, they have a lot of sets, and the sets are getting just more interesting and better. So I would say a 5. I love it. You know,
All right, 5
all
out
the
of
sets and
5.
props. Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
That's good. All right.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I'm sorry. Hayden. What are your thoughts on this episode?
Are you sure you want me to speak? Because I haven't had a proper introduction yet. But yeah, it's a fantastic episode, this one, actually. I really like the fact that it's stuff that I think that so many Quantum Leap fans have wanted to see and have kind of gone through their own fan wanks in their heads for many, many years. I thought that the mystery aspect of the leap was fantastic. They showed a lot of the clues, but you really had to be looking hard to try and think, is that a clue? Is that a clue? Is that a clue? Like the pages being ripped out, the pen not being able to write anything. But, you know, if you really had to be looking, but it was all there. And I did pick it up the first time I saw it, but it was really the second time I watched that it all became far more obvious what they were doing. I think it must just be because I watch a lot of TV and I knew what the title of the episode was, that I thought I'm going to have to be looking for clues from the start. So I did have it picked, but I think what they did, they set up very, very well. And I'm really liking what's going on at the project. The fact that we've got Janice now somewhat far more involved, and I was very, very shocked when Ben died, but I'm glad that it wasn't permanent. No, he's not immortal, for anyone who's wondering. They said in the episode it's because of the nuclear reactor. So we can try and put that debate to bed, please. You know, Albie hasn't seen his shadow, so we don't have to have 6 weeks of 6 weeks of that ridiculous argument. Yeah, so there was nothing about the episode that I didn't like, and I think it's the best episode that they've done so far. So I'm going to give it 5 bomb-triggering pens out of 5.
Nice, 5 out of 5. That's 2 for 2, 5 out of 5. That's pretty good. Yeah, there wasn't anything I really didn't like about this episode. Maybe it's a silly thing, the empty coffee cups, but I'll talk about that at another time. Just a personal pet peeve of mine. Maybe they did. Here's an empty coffee cup, Janice. That's for you. There's no poison in it. But overall, I really liked this episode. I really liked Caitlin's performance in the whole episode. I could not stop watching Caitlin in this episode, besides being absolutely gorgeous and me being enamored with her. Just the character of Addison. And, you know, a lot of people think Ben carries the show, but I really got to say that Addison, you know, Caitlin carries the show because, like in the old series, Scott was in every scene. But in this series, it's Caitlin that's in almost every scene because she's the main focus of the headquarters scenes, because everything is revolving really around her mostly. And then she's also in most of the leaping, the leaps. So there,
well, she's the one that connects the leaps to the project too, doesn't she?
So I think she's the hardest working person on the show. And so I really love her character.
I do have to say,
especially in this episode.
Yeah, Albie. Yeah, I do agree with you that Caitlin is really the standard for the acting in the series, but I really think that every member of the cast and the recurring characters is really making the show as good as it is. So kudos to everyone on the cast and the recurring cast. So
yeah, you know, I'm waiting for Caitlin to, you know, just bring in a cigar with her and light it up in an imaging chamber. I really am, just because since Al's got to smoke in the imaging chamber, why not Caitlin? Or why not?
Hey, times have changed. Not allowed to smoke inside anymore.
I'm hoping for
It'll be
an
a
episode.
vape, if anything.
I'm hoping for an episode that takes place to where, like, there's Ben's making constant changes in the timeline, almost like when Homer Simpson is stomping on butterflies, and like just weird things start to happen.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah, mosquitoes. Okay. But I think if there's an episode like that where Ben keeps changing the future, it'd be great to see different versions of Caitlin as Addison doing different things, and one of them being like in an Al-esque outfit, with a crazy Hawaiian shirt, smoking a cigar. That would just be great with the classic gummy bear hand link. Things I'd like to see in the future. Of course, we're still halfway through the first season, so we got a ways to go yet, and there's so much time for that kind of stuff to happen.
Well, there's not that much more left, is there? Because is it, 18 episodes, and we're already 11 down.
11 down,
right?
12 coming out soon.
It's 2012. Gia is your daughter, and she's trans.
She's being bullied. I just want to live my life. We will not back down.
Quantum Leap, next Monday on NBC.
So that should be a good episode.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it should be. And then after that, what are they going to start doing after that? And,
they're doing things that they might have wanted to do back in the series from the 90s, but probably weren't able to. I'm liking seeing the progress.
Yes. As great as this episode was for my nerdness and my love of all things time travel and time loopy, and of course, my love of Star Trek Voyager. Me and my daughter share that. We watch Star Trek Voyager all the time. So to see the Doctor, when she saw Robert Picardo in the teaser from the previous episode at the end of it, she was like, looked at me and she jumped up and she goes, Robert Picardo. I was like, I know, how cool. Because I had known that like about 3 days before she had seen it. So, and I didn't spoil it because I knew she'd really love that. Because one of her favorite episodes of Voyager is a Doctor-centric episode called Latent Image. If you haven't seen it, it's really good. Check it out. But Robert Picardo's performance in that is just amazing. So that's one of the episodes she watches. Okay, anyway, I know we got a short show today, so I'm going to just give my rating right up front here. 5 out of 5. I'm going to give it 5 egg timers attached to a bomb for no apparent reason. Because it has a trigger in a pen. So why does it need an egg timer? So does the bomb go off even if he doesn't trigger it with the pen? I don't know.
No, that would be.
Or do they just put an egg timer next to it to be silly? I don't know.
Right.
So 5 egg timers. So I think we got a perfect score of 15.
I think that what happened was when he pressed the trigger, that's what set the countdown going.
Oh, good point.
Because remember, it didn't explode immediately.
Yeah. Yes. So
because he had to keep on pushing it.
There was no blue wire or red wire because Rennie was jumping up going, cut the blue wire. Because we always say cut the blue wire. We don't know. But okay. So the trigger starts the egg timer, which gives like a 3-minute countdown. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Man, it's great to have you on here, Hank, with your brains about figuring stuff out. I'm just watching to enjoy, but he's got the brains. Well, he's a professor of maths, so that probably has something.
And it's Hayden, by the way.
We're just going to wrap this one up pretty quick. But I really enjoyed having you on, Chris, and thank you for coming on the show. Can you tell people where they can find you other than here?
Everybody can find me on YouTube, Top Level Media, and I do a lot of celebrity news. I do a lot of flying, and you never know, I can create some clips for the Quantum Leap podcast of flying, stuff like that. And and it was fantastic being on here. I look forward to being on again if I can come back.
Yeah, always invited.
I love it here.
We really appreciate you.
I won't send the restraining order yet.
Yeah, I love you too, Hayden.
Oh, Hayden! It's Hayden. That's right, Hayden. Great.
Sorry, I know what it is. I'm not wearing my glasses. You just didn't recognize me, did you?
Oh, there you are. Yeah, okay.
There you are, Hayden.
I once asked a really beautiful woman if she thought I looked better with glasses or without. So she put her glasses on and said, without.
Hayden is on assignment next week, so we won't see him in next week's episode. But
I might go quantum deep for you, though. I'll see how.
That'd be great if you could send in a quantum deep from your vacation, but your well-deserved vacation. So enjoy that. I heard you're going to go see some RHCP.
Yep.
All right. The guy from Back to the Future 2.
Giving it away now. All right.
Is Needles going to be there from Back to the Future Part 2?
Right. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Because that's the power of love.
Yeah, the power of love. All right. Well, for the Quantum Leap podcast, I'm Albie.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Hayden Simpson from Sector 7G.
We'll see you next time. Get leaping.